Hey guys, tonight we're going to talk about Roman gladiators. But let's be clear, we're not diving into the Hollywood version with old muscles, heroic speeches, and the emperor's dramatic thumbs up. Nope, we are peeling back that myth to get to the gritty, sweaty, and frankly, quite bleak reality of being a disposable piece of property in the Roman entertainment machine. Spoiler alert if this were real. Your chances of surviving the first few months, let alone the first day, would be, well, let's just say, not exactly promising. You'd probably be more likely to trip over a stray bit of straw and call it a day. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop your city and the time in the comments below. It's always fascinating to see our little community spread across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The last memory of your old life is the sun glinting off a handful of silver coins. They pass from one grimy hand to another, and just like that, you belong to someone new. The transaction is brutally simple, devoid of any ceremony. You're no longer a person with a name, a family, or a home. You are resething, an investment. Your value is now measured in your potential to bleed for the entertainment of others. The journey is a blur of dust and jolting discomfort. You're chained in the back of a stuffy, windowless cart with a few other men, their faces a mixture of sullen defiance and hollow-eyed despair. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and fear. Maybe you were a prisoner of war, a proud Germanic warrior captured on the foggy frontier, your village burned to the ground. Or perhaps you were a Thracian shepherd who simply had the misfortune of being in the wrong place when the legions marched through. It doesn't matter now. Your past is a ghost. You listen to the rhythmic clatter of the wooden wheels on the stone road, a sound that seems to be counting down the final moments of your freedom. Through a crack in the cart's wall, you catch glimpses of the Roman countryside, olive groves, vineyards, the occasional villa perched on a hill. It's a world you can see but can no longer touch. It belongs to them, the people who will soon be cheering for your death. You've heard whispers about where you're going. A ludus, a gladiator school, a place where men are forged into weapons. The other men in the cart share grim rumors. They talk of grueling training, of meager food, of the ever-present threat of the whip. But most of all, they talk about the arena, the sand, the roar of the crowd. As the cart rumbles on, you notice something strange about one of the men. He's not chained. He sits apart, his posture less slumped, his eyes holding a flicker of something that isn't just terror. You later learn he is an actor at USA free man who voluntarily signed a contract to become a gladiator. He sold himself into this life, trading his freedom and legal status for a signing bonus and the slim chance of fame and fortune. You can wrap your head around it. Who would choose this cage? It's a question that historians centuries from now will still be puzzling over. What drove these free men to voluntarily become infamies? The lowest of the low, was it the crushing weight of debt, a desperate gamble to provide for their family, or was it a pathological thirst for the arena's violent glory? The answer is likely as complex and varied as the men themselves. Finally, the cart lurches to a stop. The heavy bar on the door is lifted, and blinding sunlight floods the small space. You're shoved out, stumbling into a dusty courtyard. Before you stands a formidable wooden gate, reinforced with iron bands. From beyond it, you hear the clang of metal on metal, the grunts of exertion, and the sharp crack of a whip. This is it. This is the end of the road and the beginning of the path. Your new home. Your new career, revealing a world of sand and sweat. Your life as you knew it is officially over. You take a hesitant step forward, crossing the threshold from the world you knew into this new, brutal reality. The gate clangs shut behind you, the sound echoing with a grim finality. The first thing that hits you is the smell. The outline in your mind was right, but reality is so much more potent. It's a thick, oppressive cocktail of old sweat, fear metal, and something vaguely like a sour, overboiled stew. It's the smell of a place where men's bodies are pushed to their absolute limit, day in and day out. This is the ludus, and it's less a school and more a human factory floor. The layout is starkly, brutally efficient. The central courtyard you're standing in is covered in coarse, yellow sand, just like the arenas. You instinctively know its purpose is to absorb sweat, spit, and blood, making it easy to rake clean for the next day's work. Surrounding this training ground are low, functional buildings made of rough-hewn stone and timber. It has all the charm of a military stockade, which, you realize, stockade is exactly what it is. A burly man with a permanence calend, a leather whip coiled at his hip, grabs you by the arm, his grip like iron. He is a doctor, one of the trainers, likely a former gladiator himself who survived long enough to graduate to this side of the whip. That's the armory, he grunts, pointing to a windowless building from which you can hear the rhythmic clank-clank-clank of a hammer on an anvil. Don't even think about it. He gestures to another building. That's the kitchen. You leap what you're given. Another one, with a slightly cleaner doorway, the infirmary. Try not to end up there. The whole place is designed with one goal in mind: control. The outer walls are high, probably 12 to 15 feet, and you can see sharpened stakes angled outwards at the top. Escape is not just discouraged, it's engineered to be practically impossible. This is a key feature of any ludus. They were privately owned businesses, but they functioned as maximum security prisons. The owner, the l'honnête, couldn't afford to have his valuable investment simply walk away. As your eye dragged towards the barracks, you pass men in various states of training. In one corner, two heavily muscled figures slam wooden swords against tall, sturdy posts, volley, the impacts thudding in a steady, exhausting rhythm. In another, a lithe, weary man practices throwing a net, his movements fluid and deadly. Their eyes are either fixed on their task or staring into a private middle distance of pain and exhaustion. They are your future, and they look utterly broken in. Your eye shoved towards a long, low building sectioned off into small, doorless cells. These are the cellae, your new living quarters. As you pass one of the stone dividers, you notice something scratched into the surface. It's a crude drawing of a stick figure with a helmet and a sword, standing over another stick figure lying on the ground. Below it, someone has painstakingly carved the name FLAMMAN for tally marks. It's a piece of graffiti, a fleeting assertion of identity and a place designed to erase it. Archaeologists find these all the time in the ruins of barracks and amphitheaters, boasts of victory, prayers to Nemesis, the goddess of vengeance, or just a simple declaration, "I was here." It's a tiny, pathetic, and profoundly human act of defiance. Your guide stops in front of an empty cell and shoves you inside. The space is tiny, maybe 6 feet by 8 feet. The only furnishing is a thin pallet of straw on the cold stone floor. This is it. This is your home now, the height of Roman correctional luxury. As you stand there, taking in the bleakness, you wonder if all ludi are like this. The truth is, they varied. Historians still debate the spectrum of conditions. An imperial ludus in Rome, training gladiators for the Colosseum itself, might have had slightly better food, more skilled doctors, and maybe even heated baths. They were, after all, conditioning prime imperial assets. A provincial school in Gaul or Britain, however, was likely far more squalid. You're trying to figure out where on that scale your new home falls, but from the looks of it, you're definitely not staying at the Gladiator Hilton. The question of whether you're in a one-star hellhole, or a two-star hellhole, or a two-star hellhole, or a two-star hellhole feels academic at this point. The trainer grunts something you don't catch and walks away. You're left alone in the gloom of your cell. The sounds of the courtyard are your only company now, the thud of wood, the trainer's barked commands, the weary groans of men. This is the soundtrack to the rest of your life, however long that may be. You sink onto the straw, the rough fibers scratching at your skin. the journey is over. You don't know how long you sit there, lost in the echoing void of your own thoughts. Time seems to have warped in this place, stretching and compressing in unfamiliar ways. But eventually, the monotonous sounds of the training yard are pierced by a new tone voice that carries an air of authority, sharper and more clipped than the trainer's guttural barks. Heavy footsteps approach, not the worn leather soles of the guards, but the firm, confident stride of someone who owns the ground he walks on. A shadow falls across the opening of your cell. You look up and see him. He isn't what you expected. HES, not a giant of a man, scarred and muscle-bound from a life in the arena. HES, middle-aged, with a soft paunch straining against the fabric of a surprisingly fine, if slightly garish, purple-trimmed tunic. His hands, resting on his hips, are clean and fleshy, adorned with a large, gaudy ring. But it's his eyes that hold your attention. They move over you not with curiosity or contempt, but with the cold, detached assessment of a butcher inspecting a side of beef. This is your Laniste, your owner. He steps into your cell, and the small space is suddenly filled with an overpowering scent of expensive, cloying perfume, a strange and sickly sweet cloud of cinnamon and myrrh that does little to mask the underlying stench of the ludus. It's the smell of money trying to distance itself from its dirty source. HES, followed by the scowling trainer from before, who now stands with a deferential, almost fearful posture. This is the new one from the war captives, Dominus, the trainer says, his voice losing its usual gravelly menace. The Laniste doesn't respond. He simply circles you, his eyes scanning every inch of your frame. He grunts, and the trainer roughly pushes you to your feet. The Laniste walks up close, his perfumed presence making your stomach turn. He grabs your arm, squeezing your bicep, then runs a hand over your shoulders and back. HES, checking the muscle, the bone structure. He then forces your jaw open, peering at your teeth as if you were a horse he was considering buying at market. The whole experience is profoundly, clinically dehumanizing. You are livestock, a commodity. This man, you realize, is the heart of the whole miserable operation. The Laniste were a strange and reviled class in Roman society. They were the impresarios of death, the managers of these human stables. Many were ex-gladiators who had somehow survived and saved enough to buy their own schools. But just as often, they were simply shrewd, ruthless businessmen who saw an opportunity in the public's insatiable thirst for blood sport. They bought and sold men like you, rented you out to fight in games, and collected the profits. To the Roman elite, they were parasites legally classified as infames just like their gladiators, pimps, and actors. Yet, through this vile trade, a successful Laniste could become phenomenally wealthy, wielding a strange kind of power from the very bottom of the social ladder. As he continues his silent appraisal, you can almost hear the gears turning in his head. He isn't thinking about your bravery or your fear. He's calculating. Legs are strong. Good foundation for a heavily armored type. A hoplomachus perhaps, but his frame is a bit lean. Maybe better suited for a secador. He's young, so he'll heal fast. No obvious old injuries. Good, but those eyes. There's too much defiance in them. That could be a problem. Have to beat that out of him early. Every part of your being is being converted into a line item on a mental ledger of profit and loss. Historians have long debated the precise nature of the Laniste's social status. While legally they were scum, did their immense wealth afford them some level of backdoor influence or grudging respect? Could Laniste, who supplied the emperor's favorite fighters, dine with senators? Almost certainly not. But could his money buy political favors, silence critics, and secure lucrative state contracts for games? Absolutely. Their position was a perfect Roman paradox, officially despised, but practically powerful. He finishes his inspection and steps back, wiping his clean hands on a piece of linen he pulls from his belt, as if he'd just touched something unclean. He turns to the trainer. "How do," the Laniste says, his voice flat and bored. Don't break him before the initial conditioning is done. I want to see what HES made of in a month. If HES useless, we can sell him to the quarries. At least well recoup the cost of the feed. And with that, he sweeps out of your cell, his perfumed trail lingering in the air like a ghost. The finality of his words hangs in the space. Recoup the cost of the feed. Your life, your potential death in the arena, it all boils down to a simple business calculation. You are not here to be a hero. You are here to generate a return on investment. If you fail, you are not even worthy of a quick death. Even more grueling way. The cold dread that settles in your stomach is a new kind of fear. It's the fear of absolute irrelevance. The Lawniste is gone, but the weight of his presence remains. You're left with the trainer, who seems to have reabsorbed some of the authority HED shed in his boss's presence. He looks at you, a smirk playing on his lips. He saw the way you tensed under the Lawniste's inspection, the flicker of defiance in your eyes. He seems to relish the task of extinguishing it. You have a name, he asks, though it's not a real question. It's a test. You hesitate. You do have a name. It's the name your mother gave you, the name your friends shouted across the fields back home. It's one of the last fragments of your old self that you're clinging to. You say it, your voice raspy from disuse and dust. The trainer lets out a short, harsh laugh. No, you don't, he says, his voice like grinding stones. No one here cares about your barbarian grunts. You are what we say you are. You do what we say you do. Your name is a memory. Forget it. He circles you, much like the Lawniste did, but his energy is entirely different. It's not cold calculation, it's a simmering, hands-on brutality. We need something for the crowds, something they can cheer for. Something that sounds good when the herald announces you. He taps a grimy finger against his chin, mockingly thoughtful. You're from the north, aren't you, tall? Pale. Let's call you Boreas. The north wind. It sounds strong mythic even. But it's not you, a brand name slapped onto a new product. This practice was standard. Gladiators were given stage names that were meant to be evocative, intimidating, or sometimes ironically grand. Names like Ferox Fierce, Celer Swift, Invicus Unconnerved, or even names from mythology like Hermes or Achilles. The name was part of the spectacle. It created a persona, a character for the audience to invest in. It separated the man from the fighter, making it easier for the crowd to cheer for his bloody work, and easier perhaps for you to do it. It's the first step in building the illusion that you are more than just a terrified slave fighting for his life. You are now Boreas, a force of nature, a living legend in the making. Or, more likely, a footnote on a betting slip. The trainer leans in close, his breath hot and sour. That's your name now, Boreas. It is the only name you will answer to. If I call Inchudon move, you will feel this. He flicks his coiled whip, and the leather tip cracks the air just inches from your face. You flinch back instinctively. Good, he grunts. You learn. You now have a new name, a new identity designed for public consumption. But this erasure of your past goes deeper than just a name. Every aspect of your former life is systematically stripped away. The rough tunic you were captured in is torn from your back, replaced with a simple, coarse loincloth. The subliga cull, which will be your standard uniform from now on. You have no possessions, no trinkets from your old life, no reminders of who you were. Your world has shrunk to the size of this school, your identity to a single, for unsounding word. It's a powerful psychological tool. By severing your connection to your past, they make you more dependent on the present. The ludus becomes your entire world, the hierarchy of trainers and fellow gladiators your new society. It's a process of indoctrination, of breaking a man to his most basic components muscle, sino, and a survival instinct, and then rebuilding him in the Lawniste desired image. Here's a small, sad detail sometimes. The name's word, deliberately cruel. This small, scrawny fighter might be ironically named Goliath. A man who lost an eye might be nicknamed Cyclops. This dark humor was part of the culture of the barracks, a way to cope with the horror perhaps, but also another way to exert control. The names weren't yours to choose, and they could be used to mock you just as easily as to build you up. The question of whether gladiators ever used their birth names among themselves is one of those intimate details lost to history. Did they, in the quiet of their cells at night, whisper their true names to each other? Did they share stories of the lives they were forced to forget? It's a poignant thought. It's possible, even likely, that in those rare moments of trust, they offered each other the simple dignity of being known, of being remembered as the men they once were, before the arena claimed their names and, eventually, their lives. For now, though, that possibility feels a million miles away. Boreas. The trainer barks suddenly, his voice sharp. You jump, your head snapping up. A slow, cruel smile spreads across his face. See, you're a quick study. He turns and leaves you in the cell, the echo of your new, hollow name hanging in the stale air. You are Boreas now. You look down at your hands, turning them over. They look like your hands, but you're no longer sure they belong to you. The trainer leaves you stewing in the silence of your cell. The sun begins to set, casting long, distorted shadows across the training yard. The clanging of weapons and the shouts of command gradually die down, replaced by a low murmur of tired voices, and the clatter of what you hope is dinner being prepared. Soon, a guard comes by and shoves a wooden bowl and a cup into your hands before gesturing for you to follow. He leads you not to a dining hall, but back out into the main yard, where the other men are gathering. This is where you meet them properly for the first time. Your colleagues, your bunkmates, your potential executioners. They are a motley collection of humanity, drawn from every corner of the sprawling Roman Empire and beyond. You see hulking, blonde-haired Gauls with intricate tattoos covering their arms, weary, dark-skinned Numidia NS from North Africa, stoic-looking Syrians, and men who look like they could have been simple farmers from Italy just a few months ago. They are all stripped down to the same uniform loincloth, their bodies a tapestry of scars, fresh bruises, and hardened muscle. They move with a weary economy of motion, lining up to have a ladle of thick, grayish stew slopped into their bowls. No one speaks in the line. The only sounds are the scraping of the ladle and the shuffling of feet in the sand. You get your portion and find a spot on the ground, away from the main groups. You're the new guy, the fresh meat, and you feel the occasional curious or predatory glance in your direction. As you sit, a man settles down on the sand a few feet away from you. HES older than most, his body still powerful, but etched with the history of countless battles. A long, puckered scar runs from his jaw, pulling one side of his mouth into a permanent, grim smile. He nods at you, the simple, almost imperceptible gesture. New, he asks, his Latin accented but clear. You just nod, your mouth full of the surprisingly bland stew. Don't sit alone, he says, not unkindly. It marks you as weak, or arrogant. Both are dangerous here. He takes a noisy slurp of his own food. MCR Ixis. Or that's what they call me now. You remember the trainer's warning, unintroduce yourself with the name you were given. Boreas. C. R. Ixis grunts. Ain, or their name. Figures. They like to keep it simple. He looks around at the other men, his gaze lingering on different faces. See that one? He nods towards a giant of a man, built like a brick wall, who is eating with a ferocious intensity. That's Valeries, a free man, an octoratus. Came here to pay off his brother's gambling debts. He thinks his status makes him better than the rest of us. HES wrong. He then points to a pair of younger men sitting together, talking in low, urgent whispers in a language you don't recognize. Thracians, captured together, their brothers or cousins. Something like that. They stick together, watch each other's backs. It's smart, but it's also a weakness. The law on his stay knows it. He'll make them fight each other eventually. The crowd loves that kind of drama. The casual way he says it sends a chill through you. The idea of being forced to kill someone you know, someone you've shared meals and stories with, it's a horror you hadn't yet contemplated. This is the fundamental, cruel paradox of your new life. The men you live with, train with, and sleep beside are your only support system, the only people on earth who can understand your miserable existence. They are your community. But the entire system is designed to pit you against that very community. Your bond is a liability, your friendship a future tragedy waiting to be scripted. This dynamic of camaraderie and competition is one of the most fascinating aspects of the ludus. Historians and archaeologists have found evidence of deep bonds. Gladiators formed burial societies, pooling their meager earnings to ensure their fallen comrades received a proper funeral instead of being dumped in a pit. Inscriptions on tombstones often read like tributes from grieving family members to Flamme, my friend and brother in arms, who fought bravely. Yet, these same men knew that any one of their brothers could be their opponent in the next match. There's a strange and little-known aspect to this sometimes. Specific gladiators were paired up as long-term training partners and rivals, a bit like a modern-day boxing rivalry. They would learn each other's styles, push each other to improve, and occasionally be pitted against each other in the arena for a highly anticipated grudge match. Did this foster a deep, professional respect, or a bitter, personal hatred? The truth is, it was probably a messy combination of both. It's a psychological pressure cooker that is almost impossible for us to fully comprehend. As you finish your meal, see our Ixus gestures with his chin towards the far side of the yard. Stay away from them, he murmurs. A small group of men sits apart, their posture more aggressive, their laughter louder and crueler than anyone else's. The veterans, the survivors, they've killed a dozen men each. They run the barracks. Don't cross them. Don't even look at them for too long. The social structure of the ludus is becoming clear. It's a microcosm of the outside world, but with the stakes raised to life and death. There are cliques, hierarchies, unspoken rules, and dangerous people to avoid. Your survival here won't just depend on how well you can handle a sword. It will depend on how quickly you can learn to navigate this treacherous social landscape, where the man sharing your bread today might be the reason you don't see tomorrow's sunrise. The first rays of dawn are still a pale promise on the horizon when a harsh horn blast shatters the pre-dawn stillness. It's a sound designed to jolt you from whatever restless sleep you manage to find. There's no gentle waking here. One moment you're in the merciful oblivion of a dream, the next you're on your feet, your heart pounding in your chest. The day has begun. You stumble out of your cell into the chilly morning air, joining the river of groggy men heading towards the training yard. There's no time for breakfast, no moment to collect your thoughts. The trainers are already there, whips in hand, their faces grim in the flickering torchlight. The message is clear: your time is not your own. Your body is not your own. It belongs to the ludus. The warm-up is a brutal, thoughtless affair. You're forced to run endless laps around the sandy courtyard until your lungs feel like they're on fire. Then come the jumping jacks, the push-ups, the body-twisting stretches, all performed at a frantic pace, spurred on by the trainer's constant shouting and the occasional lick of a whip for anyone who flags. This isn't about athletic performance, it's about breaking you down, stripping away your energy and its remains. After what feels like an eternity, you're finally allowed a moment to catch your breath. But the real work is about to begin. Yori herded over to the the tall, thick wooden stakes you saw yesterday. A trainer shows a heavy wooden sword druides and a wicker shield into your hands. The sword is a monster, far heavier than a real gladius. You can barely lift it. This is your new best friend, the trainer barks, gesturing to the stake. You will learn to love it. You will hit it until your arms fall off. Then you will pick them up and hit it some more. The goal of the first phase of training is simple stamina and basic form. You're taught the correct stance, feet planted, body angled to present a smaller target, shield held high to protect your torso and head. Then the endless drills begin. Lunge, strike, recover. Lunge, strike, recover. The heavy wooden sword forces you to use your whole body, building the core strength needed to wield a lighter, deadlier metal blade. The trainers walk the lines, their eyes sharp, correcting every mistake with a sharp word or a sharper sting from their whip. You're swinging like a farmer with a scythe. Use your feet. Crack. Keep your shield up, you idiot. Do you want to die? Crack. Again. Harder. Does that post look scared to you? Crack. The pain is immense. Your muscles scream in protest. Your shoulders feel like they're being torn from their sockets. The rough handle of the wooden sword rubs your palm raw, and soon you feel the warm sting of a blister breaking. Sweat pours into your eyes, blinding you. But you don't stop. You can't stop. You see the men around you, their faces masks of grim concentration, their bodies moving in a synchronized rhythm of pain. This is the great equalizer of the ludus. No matter where you came from, you are all reduced to this aching muscle and draw will. This initial training methodology using oversized and overweight equipment was a legitimate Roman military technique. The writer Vegetius, in his work De Re Militari, describes how army recruits were trained with weapons and shields double the weight of standard issue. It built muscle memory and made the real weapons feel light and manageable in comparison. For a gladiator, it was a crash course in the brutal physics of combat. As the morning wears on, you notice a peculiar detail. One of the trainers carries not just a whip, but also a long, thin rod. He uses it to poke and prod at the gladiators, correcting their posture with a sharp tap to the back or a nudge to their shield arm. This is the virga, a symbol of his authority. The use of a rod instead of just a hand was a way to maintain distance, a subtle reinforcement of the hierarchy. He was the doctor, the teacher, and you were the raw material. But in this world of carefully constructed power dynamics, every symbol matters. The question of how specialized the training was from the very beginning is a matter of some academic debate. Did a new recruit, a tiro, simply undergo this generic conditioning for months, or was he quickly assessed and streamed into a specific fighting style? The evidence suggests a bit of both. Most likely, everyone endured this initial boot camp phase. But the Launistay and his top trainers were always watching, always assessing. They'd be looking at your body type, your natural agility, your temperament. Are you big and strong but slow? You're destined for heavy armor. Are you quick and nimble, perhaps already Arias, a net and trident fighter? Your future in the arena was being decided as you slammed your wooden sword against a post, a future you had no say in. By midday, your arms are trembling uncontrollably. You can barely hold the shield up. The trainer finally calls a halt. You collapse onto the sand, every fiber of your being screaming. You've never known exhaustion like this. It's a bone-deep weariness that feels like it has scoured your very soul. And as you lie there, gasping for air, you have a terrifying realization this was only the first morning. You have to do this again this afternoon, then tomorrow, and tomorrow. You now understand is paved with relentless, mind-numbing, agonizing repetition. After the morning's brutal session, you're given what passes for a lunch break. There's no communal meal. A guard simply hands you a chunk of coarse, dark bread and a water skin as you leave the training yard. You find a sliver of shade against one of the stone walls and sink to the ground, your body protesting every movement. You devour the bread in a few desperate bites. It's gritty and tasteless, but it's fuel. That's all that matters now. As you're chewing, Ixis, the scarred veteran, ambles over and slumps down beside you. He sees you rubbing your raw, blistered hands. They'll heal, he says, his voice a low rumble, or they'll get harder. Either way, you get used to it. He takes a long drink from his water skin, then looks at your meager portion. Not much, is it? You shake your head. You've never been so hungry, so completely drained of energy. Back home, A morning of hard labor in the fields would be rewarded with a hearty meal of cheese, olives, and maybe some salted fish. Here, you get a lump of dry bread. Sir Ixus lets out a humorless laugh. Get used to that too. Welcome to the diet of champions. He gestures around at the other men, all gnawing on similar rations. We are the hordery, he says, the word sounding foreign and strange. The barley men. He explains, your diet in the ludus is not designed for your pleasure. It's not even really designed for peak athletic performance in the way a modern athlete would understand it. It is, like everything else here, brutally functional. The staple of your diet is barley, boiled barley, barley porridge, barley bread. You'll also get beans, some dried fruit, and on a good day, a thin vegetable stew. It's a high carbohydrate, low protein, and almost entirely vegetarian diet. It's cheap, Sr. Ixus says, ticking off the reasons on his scarred fingers. The Launiste is not going to waste money on good meat or wine for the likes of us. Then second, he pats his own solid, thick midsection. It's not fat in the way a lazy nobleman is fat. It's a dense, solid layer covering his muscles. It makes you fat, not soft, but padded. This is the strange logic of the gladiator diet. A layer of subcutaneous fat served a practical, life-saving purpose in the arena. It acted as a cushion, protecting the muscles and vital organs underneath from superficial cuts. A slash that would look dramatic and draw a lot of blood might only cut through the fat layer, leaving the underlying muscle intact. In a profession where your value is tied to your ability to keep fighting, avoiding debilitating muscle injuries was critical. The crowd gets their bloody spectacle, and the Launista's investment is protected. You get to live to be fed more barley. The nickname Hoarder E was actually a real term used by Roman writers like Pliny the Elder. The analysis of bones found in a gladiator's cemetery in Ephesus, modern-day Turkey, has confirmed this. The bone composition showed high levels of strontium, which is consistent with a predominantly plant-based diet, and low levels of zinc, which you'd expect from eating meat. So, the image of gladiators as chiseled, lean fighting machines is largely a modern fantasy, carrying a protective layer of body fat over their powerful muscles. Think more like a modern strongman than a body ballad, but there was a downside to this diet, beyond its sheer monotony. It was nutrient deficient. The same bone analysis from Ephesus revealed something else. The gladiators drank a buzz, our sounding beverage. It was a drink made from plant ash, likely wood or bone ash, mixed with water or vinegar. This ash tonic was incredibly rich in calcium and other minerals that were missing from their grain-heavy diet. It helped with bone healing and density, which was crucial for men who were constantly suffering from injuries and fractures. So, you have that to look forward to, washing down your tasteless barley mush with a gritty glass of ash water. It's the ancient Roman equivalent of a foul-tasting protein shake. This whole dietary regime highlights the clinical, almost agricultural approach the Launiste took to managing his fighters. You are being fattened up like a pig before slaughter, your body chemically maintained to ensure maximum durability. It's not about your health in the long term, it's about your usability in the short term. The idea of whether this diet was universally applied across all ludi is, of course, debated by historians. A-star gladiator, a champion who brought in huge sums of money, might have been given better food, perhaps some meat or eggs, as a reward or simply to maintain his peak condition. But for a Tiro, a novice like you, at the bottom of the food chain you get the dregs. You get the barley and the ash. You look down at your body. You've always been lean, weary. The thought of being deliberately fattened, of your body changing not through your own will but through a calculated feeding schedule, is deeply unsettling. It's another form of control, another way they strip you of your autonomy. You are not just being trained, you are being cultivated. Sr. Ixus finishes his bread and gets to his feet, groaning. Break's over, he says. Time for the afternoon session. More fun with the wooden posts. He gives you a grim smile. Try not to think about the food. It only makes it taste worse. The afternoon session is a mirror image of the morning's torment, only worse. The sun is high and hot now, beating down on the sand and reflecting its glare into your eyes. Your muscles, already screaming from the earlier drills, are now stiff and protesting every command. The blisters on your hands have broken, and every impact of the heavy wooden sword against the palace sends a fresh jolt of searing pain up your arms. But the trainers are relentless. Their energy seems boundless, their cruelty a bottomless well. You see a man a few posts down from you falter. His swings become sluggish, his shield arm droops. H.E.S. a young Thracian, one of the brothers C. R. X. pointed out last night. He stumbles, catching his foot in the sand, and goes down to one knee. Before he can even try to rise, a trainer is on him. The whip cracks, not in the air this time, but across the man's exposed back. A reed line appears instantly on his skin. He cries out, a sharp yelp of pain. On your feet, the trainer roars. The sand is for the dead. Do you want to be dead? The Thracian scrambles up, his face pale, and resumes his position, his movements now clumsy and panicked. This is the first time you've seen the whip used for punishment rather than motivation. It's a stark, brutal lesson. Exhaustion is not an excuse. Pain is not an excuse. The only thing that matters is obedience. The rules of the ludus are absolute, enforced with an iron fist. You learn them quickly, through observation and through the sharp lessons dealt out to others. You do not speak, unless spoken to by a trainer. You do not shirk a task. You do not fight with other gladiators outside of sanctions. That's a waste of a valuable asset. You do not hoard food. You do not refuse an order any order. The penalty for any infraction is swift and painful flogging, solitary confinement in a dark cell, or a reduction in your already meager rations. This tight control was legally sanctioned. A gladiator, upon entering the school either as a slave or a volunteer, took an oath. By this oath, you swore to be burned, to be bound, to be beaten, and to be killed by the sword Yuri, Vinciari, Verbera Ri, Ferocu Necari. You essentially handed over complete control of your body and life to the Laniste. You legally consented to your own abuse and, ultimately, your own death. It was a terrifyingly comprehensive contract that stripped you of all personal autonomy. In the late afternoon, as the shadows begin to lengthen again, a new kind of training begins. Two of the veterans are called into the center of the yard. They are given blunted metal weapons, not the heavy wooden ones. The other trainees are ordered to stop their drills and form a circle to watch. This is a demonstration. A sparring match. The two men circle each other, their movements practiced and efficient. There's no wasted energy, no theatrical flourishes. It's the cold, deadly geometry of combat. A feint, a parry, a quick thrust that's expertly blocked. It's faster, more precise, and infinitely more dangerous than the clumsy hacking you've been doing. The sounds are different, to the sharp shing of blunted metal on metal. The heavy grunt as a shield takes a powerful blow. One of the veterans, a say cut or with a smooth, enclosed helmet, sees an opening. He lunges, his shield crashing into his opponent's, forcing him off balance. In a flash, he brings the pommel of his sword up, smashing it into the other man's helmet with a dull, sickening thud. The man staggers back, and the say cut or follows, sweeping his leg and sending him sprawling in the sand. He places the tip of his blunted sword on the fallen man's throat. The match is over. It took less than a minute. You watch, mesmerized and terrified. This is what you're supposed to become. This is the skill level required to survive. You are a clumsy child swinging a heavy stick. They are seasoned killers. The gap seems impossibly wide. One of the more peculiar aspects of the discipline within the ludus was the constant surveillance. You were never truly alone. Guards patrolled the barracks at night. Trainers watched your every move during the day. Even your fellow gladiators were a source of information for the Laniste. A system of informants was often encouraged, with small rewards, an extra piece of bread, a slightly better sleeping spot offered to those who reported infractions or unrest. This fostered an atmosphere of paranoia, making it difficult for any organized resistance or escape plans to form. It turned the gladiators against each other, making them complicit in their own imprisonment. The question of how often large-scale rebellions happened is a subject of historical discussion. The revolt of Spartacus is, of course, the most famous example, a dramatic outlier that shook the Republic to its core. But most historians believe that smaller, unorganized acts of defiance were more common, deliberately injuring oneself to avoid a match, working to rule, or even suicide. The story of 29 Germanic prisoners who, on the morning they were to fight in the arena, strangled each other to death in their latrine is a testament to the desperate lengths men would go to reclaim one final, grim act of agency. The sparring match ends, and you're dismissed. You stumble back to your cell, your body a symphony of pain. You collapse onto your straw pallet, the events of the day swimming in your head, the whip, the oath, the terrifying skill of the veterans. The iron-fisted discipline of this place is more than just physical. It's psychological. It's designed to grind you down, to erase your individuality, and to remold you into a single, obedient part of a killing machine. And as you drift into a fitful, dreamless sleep, you realize with a cold certainty that it's working. A few weeks pass, a monotonous blur of aching muscles, tasteless food, and the constant, grating sound of the trainer's voice. Your body, surprisingly, begins to adapt. The initial, excruciating pain subsides into a dull, persistent ache that becomes your new normal. The blisters on your hands have been replaced by thick, hard calluses. You can now swing the heavy wooden sword for hours without your arms feeling like they'll detach from your shoulders. Your getting stronger, harder, your becoming a product. One afternoon during a sparring drill with another Tiro, you mistime a block. Your opponent's wooden sword, swung with clumsy enthusiasm, smacks hard against the side of your head. The world explodes in a flash of white, and you find yourself on the sand, a high-pitched ringing in your ears. The trainer, for once, doesn't whip you. He simply gestures for two other men to haul you to your feet and drag you towards the infirmary. You've seen the infirmary sauna room from a distance, but this is your first time inside. You're expecting a filthy, blood-soaked room, but it's surprisingly clean. Well cleaner than the barracks, at least. The air smells of antiseptic herbs and vinegar. There are shelves with clay jars and linen bandages, and a few low cots for the more seriously injured. Presiding over this small domain is a man you've never seen up close before. A quiet, older Greek man, his face a web of fine lines, his hands steady and precise. He is the medicus, the school's doctor. He examines your head with a gentle touch that feels utterly alien in this world of brute force. He speaks in calm, measured tones, asking you questions to check for a concussion. He cleans the gash on your scalp with a vinegar-soaked cloth that makes you hiss in pain, then skillfully stitches it closed with a needle and fine thread. You realize with a jolt of cynical clarity why the infirmary is so well maintained and the doctors so competent. It's not out of humanitarian concern. It's pure business. A sick or injured gladiator can't fight. A gladiator who can't fight doesn't earn money for the l'honnêteté. You are a prize stallion, and this is the vet's office. Your health is an asset to be managed. The l'honnêteté is willing to invest in good medical care for the same reason he invests in weapons and training equipment to protect his property and maximize its potential for profit. The medical knowledge available to Roman doctors, especially those dealing with trauma, was surprisingly advanced. They understood the importance of cleanliness even if they didn't understand germ theory, used surgical tools like scalpels, forceps, and bone saws, and were skilled at setting broken bones and stitching wounds. Galen, one of the most famous physicians of the ancient world, actually spent part of his early career as a doctor to a gladiator school in Pergamum. He called the wounds he treated their windows into the body, and the experience gave him an unparalleled understanding of human anatomy. As the medicus works, you look around the room. On one of the cots lies another gladiator, his leg heavily bandaged and splinted. HES, one of the veterans you'd been warned about. Up close, he looks less intimidating. His face is pale with pain, and his eyes are closed. His body, a testament to years of combat, is a roadmap of healed injuries. You see the silvery trails of old lacerations, the lumpy texture of poorly set bones in his hands, and the massive, puckered burned his shoulder. His body is a living archive of pain. This is the reality that lurks beneath the surface of the glorious combat. Every fight, even a victorious one, left its mark. These scars were, in a way, a form of public record. The heavily scarred gladiator was a survivor, a man who had faced death and won, time and time again. To the adoring crowds, these scars were symbols of his prowess and experience. They added to his mystique, his celebrity. He was a walking monument to his own violent history. But for the man himself, each scar was a memory of agony, a reminder of a moment he almost didn't walk away from. One of the more peculiar medical practices of the time involved the treatment of these scars. Doctors would sometimes use special ointments and techniques to make the scars more prominent and visible, rather than trying to minimize them. A good scar, a cleaned, impressive-looking line from a sword cut, was considered more aesthetically pleasing and marketable than a ragged, ugly wound. There was an art to the disfigurement. Your very flesh was being curated for public display. Whether the gladiators themselves took pride in these scars is a complex question, and one that historians debate. Did they see them as badges of honor, proof of their martial virtue, as a Roman soldier might, or were they simply a constant, painful reminder of their servitude and the brutality they had to endure? It was likely a mixture of both. In a life where you have nothing, the story your body tells might be the only thing you truly own, written in scar tissue instead of ink. The doctor finishes his work and gives you a small clay cup filled with a bitter, herbal concoction. "Drink this," he says. "It will help with the headache. Now go, and try to keep your shield up next time." You walk out of the infirmary, your head throbbing, back into the harsh sunlight of the courtyard. The brief moment of gentle, clinical care is over. You touch the new stitches on your scalp. Your first real scar. Your first entry in the ledger of pain that is a gladiator's body. You are no longer unmarked goods. The story of your new life is beginning to be written on your skin. A few more weeks crawl by. You're settling into the grim rhythm of the ludus, a rhythm dictated by the horn, the whip, and the rumbling emptiness of your stomach. You're no longer the terrified newcomer. The fear is still there, a cold stone in your gut, but it's been joined by a hard shell of resignation. You've learned the rules, you know the faces, you understand the brutal calculus of this place. One evening, after the day's training is done, Seer Ixus seeks you out. HES not carrying a bolus to this time. He just sits next to you, leaning against the rough stone of the barracks wall. For a long time he says nothing, just watches the last streaks of purple fade from the sky. "Do you know what you are, boy?" he finally asks, his voice low. You shrug. "A slave, a gladiator." "Less than that," he says, a bitter edge to his voice. "You are infamies. Do you know the word? You've heard it whispered among the other men, always with a tone of shame or anger." You shake your head. "It means infamous, disgraced. It's a legal status, or rather, a lack of one." He picks up a small stone and turns it over and over in his calloused fingers. "Out there," he says, nodding towards the walls of the ludus, "in the real world, a Roman citizen has rights. He can own property. He can testify in court. He can't be crucified or flogged without a trial. He has a certain dignity protected by the law." He tosses the stone away. "We have none of that. By stepping into this life, we lose it all. We are legally on the same level as prostitutes, pimps, actors, and undertakers. We are the untouchables of Roman society. We are considered morally contaminated by our profession. This is the great, mind-bending paradox of being a gladiator. On the one hand, you are a superstar. The top fighters are celebrities, their names chanted in the streets, their likenesses scratched into walls and molded onto oil lamps. Women from all social classes, including the wives of senators, might swoon over a famous gladiator, seeing him as a symbol of raw and tamed masculinity. You are the pinnacle of public fascination, but on the other hand, you are social poison. Legally, you are infamies. You cannot hold public office. You cannot make a will. Your testimony in court is considered worthless. You are, in the eyes of the law and the respectable upper classes, utterly without honor. You live in a bizarre shadow world where you are simultaneously adored and despised, celebrated and condemned. Think about it. Seer Ixus continues, his voice barely a whisper. The same senator who pays a fortune to the Laniste to watch you fight, who cheers your name when you kill a man in the sand, would cross the street to avoid walking next to you. He sees you as a necessary evil, a tool for public entertainment, but fundamentally unclean. This social stigma had real-world consequences. Even if a gladiator managed to survive and win his freedom, the stain of infamy could be permanent. He might carry that legal and social disgrace for the rest of his life, forever marked by the path he was forced to walk. This is a detail that modern depictions often miss. We see the adulation, but not the institutionalized scorn. We see the fame, but not the legal death that preceded it. It's a bit like being the world's most famous and beloved garbage collector. People might admire your work from a distance, but no one wants you at their dinner party. Except here, your job isn't collecting trash, it's a cycle of killing and surviving. The exact reasoning behind why gladiators were lumped in with actors and prostitutes is some scholarly discussion. The common thread seems to be the act of selling one's body for the entertainment of others. An actor sold his voice and gestures. A prostitute sold sexual access to her body. A gladiator sold the risk of his body's destruction. In the rigid Roman sense of honor dignitas, willingly putting your body on public display and under the control of another for money was a profound act of self-degradation. It didn't matter if you were a slave forced into it, or a free man who chose it out of desperation, the result was the same. Seer Ixus falls silent again, and use it with this new, heavy knowledge. It reframes everything. The roar of the crowd you've been told to crave now sounds different in your imagination. It's not just a sound of approval, it's the sound of people delighting in your disgrace. The fame you might achieve is a tainted, hollow thing. You could become the most recognized man in the empire and still be considered less than a simple farmer. You look at Seer Ixus, at the old scars and the weary eyes, and you understand the source of his bitterness. Hes heard the cheers, and Hes felt the contempt. He knows that no matter how many men he defeats, no matter how bravely he fights, he can never win back the one thing they took from him at the very beginning, his honor. So remember that, boy, Seer Ixus says as he pushes himself to his feet. When they cheer for you, they are not cheering for you. They are cheering for a spectacle, for a monster. Never forget what you are to them. He walks away, leaving you alone in the gathering dark to contemplate the strange and lonely island of your new existence, a place where fame and shame are two sides of the same tarnished coin. The day finally comes when the trainers decide you've spent enough time beating up wooden posts. The monotonous conditioning phase is over. It's time to start shaping you into a specific, marketable type of killer. One morning, you and the other novices are herded into the armory. The armory is a dark, intimidating space, smelling of metal, oil, and old leather. Weapons and armor of every conceivable type line the walls and fill wooden racks. There are short, stabbing swords, curved scimitar-s, long-handled trident-s, and heavy, spiked balls on chains. There are massive, rectangular shields, small nimble bucklers, and everything in between. Helmets of bronze and iron stare down from shelves like a silent, metallic audience, their designs ranging from the simple and functional to the terrifyingly elaborate, shaped like fish heads or adorned with griffin crests. This is not a free-for-all. You don't get to pick what looks cool. The head trainer, a grizzled ex-gladiator with one eye, walks down the line of nervous recruits, his gaze sharp and appraising. HES, like a twisted sommelier, pairing the fighter to the weapon. HES not just looking at your body anymore, HES looking at your aptitude, your temperament, how you've moved unreacted over the past few months. He stops in front of a huge mountain of a man, a Gaul who has shown immense strength but little speed. For you, the trainer grunts, pointing to a set of heavy armor. Amurmillo. The man will be encased in bronze, carrying a large shield scudamund, a short sword gladius, a walking fortress. He moves to another, a lithened, quick-footed Syrian. You, ready Urias. He gestures to a weighted net, a three-pronged trident, and a small dagger. This fighter will rely on speed, agility, and trapping his opponent. He will fight almost naked, his vulnerability his greatest defense, forcing him to be constantly on the move. The trainer finally stands before you. The HES watched you. You're not the biggest man, but you're not the smallest either. You've shown a certain grim determination in the drills, a stamina that has surprised him. You're balanced. You, he says after a long thoughtful pause, Seikador. He points to your new set of gear. The Seikad, or pursuer, was a specialist. Your primary role is to fight against the ready Urias. Your equipment is designed specifically for that purpose. You're given a large, Roman-style shield, identical to the Amurmillo. You get the same short, deadly sword, but your helmet is the key. It's a smooth, egg-shaped monstrosity with only two tiny, pin-prick eye holes. There are no grills, no crests, no crucians. It's designed to be snag-proof to prevent the ready Urias' net from getting a hold. The trainer hands you the helmet. It's incredibly heavy. You put it on, and the world immediately changes. Your vision is reduced to a narrow tunnel. Your hearing is muffled, dominated by the sound of your own panicked breathing echoing inside the hut. This, you realize, is the trade-off. Your defense against the net comes at the cost of your senses. You'll be fighting half blind and half deaf, relying on instinct and the sheer protective power of your armor. The sheer variety of gladiator types is something modern audiences often underestimate. It wasn't just guys with swords. There were dozens of specialized classes, each with its own unique equipment, fighting style, and traditional matchups. You had the Hoplomachus, modeled on a Greek hoplite soldier, the Thrax, with a curved sword and small square shield, the Bizarres, who fought from a chariot, and even female gladiators, the gladiatrices, though they were rare and often treated as a novelty act. This system of matchups was crucial to the entertainment value. The organizers, the editors, would carefully pair different types to create a compelling narrative of contrast. The heavily armed, slow-moving Amurmillo versus the nimble, net-wielding ready Urias was a classic tank versus rogue battle, a contest of strength against speed. It was a spectacle of asymmetry. One of the more obscure and debated gladiator types is the scissor. This fighter wore a strange weapon on his left arm, a hollow steel tip that encased his forearm, ending in a semicircular blade. It was likely used to parry blows and to slash at his opponent's arms and legs. We know about them from a few reliefs and inscriptions, but their exact role and common opponents are still a topic of scholarly conjecture. Were they a mainstream type, or a rare gimmick for special occasions? The evidence is simply too thin to say for sure. Now, your training becomes specialized. You learn the specific movements of a Seikador. You practice advancing relentlessly, shield high, using its edge as a weapon. You learn to fight with your limited vision, to anticipate the darting movements of an unseen enemy, to listen for the whisper of a thrown net. Your sparring partners are no longer random novices. You are pitted against the men being trained as ready. The drills become a deadly dance, a constant rehearsal for the real thing. You hate the helmet. The feeling of sensory deprivation is terrifying, but you also understand its necessity. In your first sparring match against a trainee ready Arias, his net slides harmlessly off the smooth dome of your helmet. A moment later, you manage to trap him against a wall, your shield pinning him, the blunted tip of your sword at his throat. You are learning. You are being forged into a Sekat war. You are becoming a weapon designed for a single, deadly purpose. The transformation from a generic trainee to a specialized fighter brings a new level of scrutiny. It's no longer just the trainers watching you. One afternoon, the routine of the ludus is broken by the arrival of visitors. These aren't the usual grimy merchants or low-level functionaries. A fine carriage, pulled by two well-groomed horses, rolls into the courtyard. Out steps a man dressed in a toga of brilliant white, the purple stripe of a senator clearly visible on its border. HES, followed by 2 or 3 other wealthy-looking men, their faces soft and arrogant. The Laniste, your owner, scurries out to greet them, his usual bored demeanor replaced by a fawning, obsequious smile. He bows low, his perfume clouding the dusty air. This is a big deal. These are the editors, the wealthy patrons who sponsor and organize the gladiatorial games. They are the customers, and you are the product they've come to inspect. All training stops. You and the other gladiators are lined up in the center of the yard, standing under the hot sun like cattle at an auction. The senator and his companions stroll down the line, their expressions a mixture of Connoisseurship and disdain. They are the ones who will be paying for your blood, and they want to make sure they're getting their money's worth. The Laniste acts as the salesman, pointing out his prize assets. "Ah, Dominus," he says, gesturing to the hulking MUR Milo. "Look at the shoulders on this one. A Gaul, pure strength. He could fight a bear and the bear would apologize." He moves on, "And this one, my new ready Arias, quick as a viper. The women will love him." He stops in front of you. The senator's gaze sweeps over your body, lingering on the scar on your scalp. He looks you in the eye, and you feel a powerful urge to look away, to break his gaze. But you force yourself to hold it. You are told to adopt a fighting stance. You hoist your heavy shield and sword, your muscles tensing. The senator nods slowly, a flicker of interest in his eyes. This process was a critical part of the business. An editor looking to put on a spectacular show for a religious festival or a political campaign would tour the local ludi to rent or buy the best fighters. The Laniste would negotiate prices based on a gladiator's skill, experience, and popularity. A seasoned champion, a first pole gladiator primus palus, could command an astronomical fee. A novice like you, a Tiro, was a budget option, a risky but cheap addition to the undercard. The decision-making of these sponsors was often incredibly specific. They weren't just buying fighters, they were curating a narrative for the day's games. They might want a classic matchup of Sekat or Versus. Ready Arias. They might want to see a heavily armored Hoplomachai slug it out. Or they might want something more exotic, a barbarian showcase, pitting a German against a Thracian, playing on the crowd's prejudices and fascination with the frontiers of the empire. And the very style of your potential death were being decided by the whims of these wealthy men. One of the more peculiar forms of sponsorship involved not just renting the gladiator, but also his equipment. A particularly wealthy patron might commission a custom-made set of armor for his favorite fighter to wear in the games he was sponsoring. This armor would be ostentatiously decorated, perhaps with silver inlays or elaborate crests, serving as a very public display of the sponsor's wealth and generosity. The gladiator became a walking billboard for his patron's ego. After the initial inspection, the senator requests a demonstration. You and the trainee ready Arias you've been sparring with for weeks are called forward. You're handed your blunted weapons. The Laniste gives you a look that says, Make this look good or you'll regret it. You put on the claustrophobic cut or helmet. The world narrows. You hear the muffled voice of the long-unsolved announcing the matchup. You hear the soft, amused chatter of the sponsors. Then silence. The fight begins. You and the restorative circle each other. This is no longer just a drill. There's a new intensity, a new weight to every move. You can feel the sponsor's eyes on you, judging, evaluating. You charge forward, your shield raised, trying to corner him. He dances away, the net held ready in his hand. He finds a throw, and you instinctively raise your shield higher, momentarily blinding yourself. Then that split second, he darts to the side, his trident jabbing at your exposed leg. You feel the dull thud of the blunted prongs against your thigh. A murmur of approval comes from the spectators. The fight continues for a few minutes, a carefully choreographed dance of violence. You both know each other's moves so well. You know he'll try to use his speed, and he knows you'll try to use your relentless forward pressure. Finally, you see your chance. He overcommits to a trident thrust, leaving himself slightly off balance. You surge forward, not with your sword, not with your shield, slamming the full weight of your body into his. He stumbles back, and you follow, hooking his leg with your own, sending him to the sand. You press the tip of your training sword to his throat. The long-unsolved claps his hands together, a broad, greasy smile on his face. You see a natural pursuer. He has the instinct. The senator nods, a faint, almost imperceptible smile on his lips. He says something to the long-unsolved in a low voice. The deal is being made. Whether a gladiator had any say in these contracts is a point of contention among historians. For a slave like you, the answer is unequivocally no. You are property being leased. But for an octoratus, a free man who signed on voluntarily, the situation is murkier. Did his contract specify the number of fights, the type of opponents, or the locations? Some scholars believe these contracts could be quite detailed, while others argue that once a man took the oath, he surrendered all such control to his long-unsolved. It's likely the reality was somewhere in between, dependent on the man's initial fame and bargaining power. The senator and his entourage leave, their business concluded. The long-unsolved is practically beaming. Later that day, the word comes down. You have been chosen. Along with a dozen other men from this ludus, you will be fighting in the games at the nearby provincial capital in 2 weeks' time. It's your first real match. The training is over. The next time you fight, the swords will be sharp. The 2 weeks leading up to your debut are a strange mixture of dread and heightened reality. The training intensifies, but there's a new edge to it. The trainers push you harder, but their blows are less frequent. They are no longer just breaking you, and they are honing a valuable, if temporary, asset. The food improves slightly. You're given a small portion of fish, and the barley seems a little thicker. It's a calculated investment by the long-unsolved to ensure his fighters are in peak condition on the day of the games. AGS fattening the calves for market. The atmosphere in the barracks changes too. The usual tired murmuring is replaced by a tense, electric silence. The men who have been chosen, yourself included, are now set apart. You look at each other differently. You've shared misery for months, but now you're bound by a new, more terrifying bond, a shared date with destiny. The night before you're set to leave for the city, the fear, which has been a constant, low hum in the back of your mind, becomes a roaring inferno. You lie on your straw pallet, staring into the darkness of your cell. Sleep is an impossible dream. Every sound from the courtyard, the sigh of the wind, the distant bark of a dog, the cough of a guard, seems magnified, a prelude to your own end. Your mind races, replaying every training drill, every mistake, every moment of pain. You try to picture the arena, the crowd, the face of your opponent. Will he be bigger than you, faster, more experienced? Will he be one of the men from this very ludus? The long-unsolved wouldn't hesitate to pit his own fighters against each other if the price was right. The thought makes your stomach clench. Could you kill the ready Arias you've been training with for months, the man whose rhythms and feints you know as well as your own? You hear a quiet stirring from the next cell. It's the Thracian brother, the one whose sibling C.R. Ixus predicted would one day be his opponent. HES making a soft, rhythmic sound, a low humming or chanting in his native tongue. Is it a prayer, a song from his homeland? You listen to the quiet, desperate sound, and you feel a profound sense of shared humanity in the darkness. You are all alone in your fear, yet you are all terrified together. This pre-match anxiety, this horror vacui of the soul, is an experience that transcends time. Soldiers before a battle, athletes before a championship, performers before stepping on stage, they all feel a version of it. But for you, the stakes are absolute. It's not about winning or losing a game. It's about living or dying. The psychological toll must have been immense. The Romans, in their own practical way, had a ritual for this. On the night before the games, the editors would host a public banquet for the gladiators, the sine libera or free supper. This was part publicity stunt, part last meal. The chosen fighters would be cleaned up, given fine clothes to wear over their loincloths, and served a lavish feast, a stark contrast to their usual meager fare. The public was allowed to attend, to walk among the gladiators, to get a close look at the men who were about to die for their entertainment. It was a bizarre, surreal event. The gladiators, for one night, were treated like heroes. They would eat rich foods and drink good wine, surrounded by morbidly curious onlookers. Some fighters, the veterans, might swagger and boast, soaking up the attention. Others, especially the novices like you, would likely be consumed by fear to eat, just picking at the food, their minds elsewhere. Plutarch wrote that some gladiators would use this opportunity to give messages to the onlookers, asking them to pass on last words to family they might still have somewhere. Whether this banquet was a kindness or a cruelty is a matter of perspective. Was it a final taste of the good life before the end, or was it a way to mock the condemned with a glimpse of a world they could never truly be a part of? Historians have differing views. Some see it as a genuinely religious or ritualistic act, a purification before the sacrifice. Others see it as a purely cynical marketing tool designed to whip up public interest and allow gamblers to get a final look at the horses before placing their bets. You don't get a grand sine libera. Your lawn estate is too cheap for that. But a guard does come by with a small wineskin, a rare treat. From the Dominus he grunts. He says to sleep well. The wine is sour, but it's strong. You drink it gratefully, hoping it will numb your racing thoughts and grant you a few hours of oblivion. As you drift off, the wine finally blurring the sharp edges of your fear, you think about the crowd. You've been trained to fight, but you haven't been prepared for them. The roar of tens of thousands of people, all focused on you, all baying for blood. Will it energize you or paralyze you? C.R. Ixus once told you that the noise is the worst part. It gets inside your head, he said, and you can't hear yourself think. All you can hear is their hunger. Your last conscious thought is of the sacut or helmet. You picture yourself putting it on, the world disappearing, replaced by the sound of your own breathing. Maybe, just maybe, the helmet will be a blessing. Maybe it will block out the noise. The journey to the city begins before dawn. You and the other chosen gladiators are chained together, unloaded into the back of a cart, the same way you arrived at the Ludus what feels like a lifetime ago. The mood is grimly silent. The bravado from the veterans is gone, replaced by a quiet, stoic tension. The novices, yourself included, are pale with a fear so palpable you can almost taste it in the air. As the sun rises, the cart trundles into the provincial capital. The city is already buzzing with energy. The games are a major event, and people have flocked from all over the surrounding countryside. The streets are crowded with merchants selling food and souvenirs, families looking for a good spot to watch the pre-game parade, and gamblers excitedly discussing the day's matchups. The entire city has the atmosphere of a festival, a grand public holiday. It's a celebration built around the promise of your death. You're not taken directly to the amphitheater. Instead, the cart rattles through a back alley and stops at a gate leading into the spoliarium, the stripping room or dead room connected to the arena. This is where the bodies of the slain are brought to be stripped of their armor and weapons, which are valuable assets belonging to the Laniste. It's a grim, windowless antechamber that smells of stale blood and disinfectant. You are unloaded here into the belly of the beast and wait. After what feels like an eternity, it's time for the Pampa, the opening parade. This is the official start to the day's festivities. You're given your fighting equipment, but not your helmet yet. You polish your shield and sword, your hands slick with nervous sweat. The expensive, showy armor commissioned by the sponsors is distributed. You, being a no-name rookie, get a standard, well-used set. It's heavy, solid, and smells faintly of the last man who wore it. You line up in a tunnel that leads out into the arena. In front of you are musicians playing horns and trumpets, their music blaring undiscordant in the enclosed space. Behind you are the other gladiators, a silent, grim procession of condemned men. And then you start to move. You step out of the darkness of the tunnel into the blinding light of the arena. The sheer scale of the place hits you like a physical blow. The stands rise up around you, a massive, dizzying wall of humanity. Tens of thousands of people are packed into the seats, a roaring, faceless monster. The noise is a physical force. It's not just cheering, it's a deafening, chaotic wave of sound shouts, chants, stomping feet, the blare of trumpets. It presses in on you from all sides, vibrating through the sand and up into your bones. Seer Ixis was right. You can't hear yourself think. You march, part of the grim parade, around the edge of the arena floor. The sand under your feet is a deep, ochre yellow, raked smooth. You try not to look at the dark stains that betray its true purpose. You force yourself to look up at the crowd. You see faces, a blur of them, all turned towards you. They are smiling, laughing, eating, drinking. A family passes a wineskin. A group of young men point and shout your fighting type. A group of young men point and shout your front row, adorned in silks and jewelry, looks at you with a gaze of detached, clinical curiosity, as if you were an exotic animal in a cage. You are the center of their universe, and you have never felt more alone. The parade is a crucial piece of Roman showmanship. It allowed the editor to display the goods he had procured for the day's entertainment. It built anticipation, showcased the variety of fighters, and gave the audience a chance to pick their favorites and place their bets. The gladiators would often be dressed in ornate cloaks or tunics for the Pampa, which would be dramatically thrown off before the fighting began. As you circle the arena, you pass the VIP box, where the sponsor, the senator who visited your ludus, sits in a place of honor, soaking in the adulation of the crowd. He gives a lazy, regal wave. Legend has it that the gladiators would stop before the emperor's or sponsor's box and declare, Ave, Imperator, Moritarier te salute and hail, Emperor. Those who are about to die salute you. It's a fantastic, dramatic line, immortalized by Hollywood. The only problem, it's almost certainly not true. The only time this phrase is recorded is by the historian Suetonius, describing a single, unique event, a massive, mock naval battle staged by the Emperor Claudius on a lake, using thousands of condemned criminals, not professional gladiators. There is no evidence whatsoever that gladiators ever said this as part of the standard arena ritual. It's a historical myth, a bit of dramatic flair that has stuck. The reality was likely much less poetic. You probably just stood there, sweating in your armor, waiting for the signal to begin. The parade concludes. The musicians file out. The attendants rake the sand one last time. The first matchup is announced by a herald, his voice booming across the suddenly hushed arena. It's not you. Two other fighters, a THRAX and AMUR Millo, step into the center of the vast, empty space. The gate clangs, shut behind them. Yuri herded back into a waiting area just off the sand, a sort of on-deck circle for the damned. From here, you can hear everything. You hear the initial clash of their weapons. You hear the grunts of effort, and you hear the crowd. They gasp at a near miss. They roar with approval at a skillful blow. They are a single monstrous entity, rising and falling with the tide of the battle. You stand there, waiting your turn, the deafening noise of the crowd a prelude to your own trial by fire. The fight between the THRAX and the AMUR Millo is brutal and short. From your vantage point in the waiting area, you catch glimpses of the action. You see the flash of their blades in the sun, the desperate dance of advance and retreat. The crowd roars as the AMUR Millo uses his superior size and the weight of his large shield to bull-rush the smaller Thracian, backing him against the arena wall. The THRAX, quick and agile, manages to slip away, his curved sword leading a bright red line on the AMUR Millo's arm. First blood. The crowd goes wild, but the AMUR Millo is a tank. He seems not to even notice the wound. He presses his advantage, relentless and methodical. The THRAX dodges and weaves, but HES running out of space. The AMUR Millo finds a low attack, and when the THRAX drops his shield to block, the AMUR Millo brings his own shield up, smashing the edge of it into the Thracian's face. There's a sickening crunch. The THRAX staggers back, his small shield falling from his grasp. The AMUR Millo doesn't hesitate. Powerful thrust with his gladius. The fight is over. An attendant rushes out to confirm the kill. The crowd is on its feet, the tidal wave of sound. The victorious AMUR Millo raises his sword to the sky, a gesture of triumph, before being led away to the cheers of his new fans. Two other attendants unceremoniously drag the body of the THRAX out of the arena, leaving a dark trail in the yellow sand. Before you even have time to process what you've just seen, the herald calls out the next pairing. The pursuer Boreas against the netman, Dr. Asus, your heart hammers against your ribs. This is it. Dr. Asus is the ready Arias you've been training with, the man you shared bread with, whose rhythms you know by heart. The honest A did it. He pitted you against each other. A guard shoves you forward, out of the waiting area and onto the sand. The heat and the noise wash over you again, but this time it's different. It's personal. All those thousands of eyes are on you. You walk to the center of the arena, your legs feeling like lead. Dr. Vasis is already there, looking weary and dangerously quick. HES stripped to a loincloth and a metal shoulder guard, the Gaelerus. He holds his trident, net, and dagger. He meets your gaze for a split second. You see no recognition, no friendship, only a cold, focused intensity that mirrors your own terror. You put on your helmet. The world vanishes. The roar of the crowd is instantly muffled, replaced by the hot, damp, echoing sound of your own breathing. Your vision shrinks to the two tiny eye holes. It's like looking at the world through a keyhole. You can see Drivasis in that narrow frame, a distant figure in a sea of blurred colors. The claustrophobia is suffocating, but it's also a strange kind of sanctuary. In here, it's just you, your heartbeat, and your target. A trumpet blast, sharpened final, signals the start of the match. All your training, all those endless, repetitive drills takes over. Your body moves before your mind can catch up. You adopt the sekut or stance, shield high, sword ready, a relentless forward creep. Dr. Asus begins to circle you, light on his feet, the net swaying rhythmically in his hand. HES testing you, looking for an angle, trying to get you to turn so he can attack your back. You don't let him. You keep turning with him, your shield always facing him, a solid wall between you. The sand shifts under your feet. Your breath fogs the inside of your helmet. Sweat drips into your eyes, and you can't wipe it away. You just blink, trying to clear your vision. He fights a throw of the net. You hold your ground, remembering your training. Don't fall for it. Don't overcome. He darts in, his trident a blur, jabbing at your legs. You block with your shield, the prongs scraping against the wooden bronze. HES fast, faster than in training. The adrenaline is real now. The nature of these fights was not always a fight to the death. This is a common misconception. Gladiators were expensive assets. Aelon Estate didn't want his entire stable wiped out in a single afternoon. A fight could end when one fighter was clearly defeated and either wounded or disarmed. This is where the real drama began. The question of life or death was often put to the crowd and the editor. You press forward, trying to use your superior protection to your advantage. You have to close the distance. You have to trap him. You lunge. And he dances back, just out of reach. As you recover your balance, he sees his opening. The net flies. You see it coming, a dark web expanding in your narrow field of vision. You do what you've practiced 1,000 times. You drop to one knee, tucking your head down, making your body as small a target as possible. The weighted net sails over your head, landing in the sand behind you. HES missed. He has to retrieve it. This is your chance. You surge to your feet and charge. HES pulling the net back, his attention divided. You're on him in 3 strides. He drops the net and brings his trident up to defend himself, but HES is slow. You crash into him with your shield, sending him stumbling backward. He trips and falls to the sand. You stand over him, the point of your sharpened gladius at his throat. The muffled roar of the crowd filters through your helmet. It's over. You've won, or at least you've survived the first part. Dr. Asus lies still, his eyes wide with fear, his chest heaving. He doesn't struggle. He knows the rules. The next move isn't his to make. It isn't yours either. You stand there, sword pointed at drive as you assess throat, the sound of your own ragged breathing roaring in your helmet. The entire amphitheater, which just a moment ago was a chaotic sea of noise, falls into a tense. This is the moment of truth. This is the moment of truth. The Summa Rudis, the chief referee, steps forward to separate you, officially halting the combat. Dr. Asus lies defeated on the sand. He is disarmed and at your mercy. But it is not your mercy that matters. Dr. Asus, knowing the protocol, raises one finger on his left hand. The ad digitum to the finger. It is the universal sign of surrender, an appeal for his life. He is not begging you. He is begging the crowd, and more importantly, the man who paid for this spectacle, the senator, the editor of the games. Now, all the power in this vast arena shifts. It flows away from the sand, away from the fighters, and into the stands. The fate of a human life becomes a matter of public opinion, a spontaneous, brutal referendum. The crowd erupts. It's a confusing cacophony of shouts. Some are yelling Mitt. Let him go. Release him. They are impressed by drive as you assess fight, or perhaps they have money riding on him surviving to fight another day. They wave handkerchiefs or pieces of cloth in the air, the sign for mercy. But just as many, if not more, are screaming Ayugula. Slay him, cut his throat. They are thirsty for a definitive, bloody conclusion. They show their desire for death with a gesture that has become one of the most misunderstood symbols in history, the thumbs up. Forget everything you've seen in movies. The thumbs down for death and thumbs up for life is a modern invention, a cinematic myth. In reality, the signs were different. The signal for mercy was likely a closed fist with the thumb tucked inside. The pollice compresso, meant to symbolize a sheathed sword. The signal for death, for the kill, was the pollice verso, the turned thumb. But which way was a turned thumb? Historians and classicists are still fiercely debating this. The prevailing theory is that the death signal was a thumbs up, meant to represent a drawn sword. Another theory suggests the thumb was jabbed out horizontally, or even pointed towards the chest. There is no definitive, universally accepted answer. The only thing we know for sure is that the Hollywood version is wrong. It's one of those historical facts that is so ingrained in pop culture. The truth seems strange and unlikely. You stand frozen, watching this grim pantomime unfold. You see thousands of people, men and women, rich and poor, screaming for the death of a man you know. They are leaning forward, their faces contorted with excitement. They are making a game of his life. The final decision, however, does not rest with the mob. Their cries are merely advisory. The ultimate power lies with the editor. He paid for the show, he gets the final say. He can choose to listen to the crowd, or he can ignore them. It's his call. Every eye in the amphitheater swivels to the senator's box. He lets the tension build, savoring his moment of absolute power. He has risen from his seat and stands looking down at the two of you on the sand. He sees you, the victorious novice. He sees Dr. Asus, the defeated one, appealing for his life. The crowd's roared eyes down slightly, waiting for his judgment. He looks at the screaming mob, then back at the sand. A faint, cruel smile plays on his lips. Slowly, deliberately, he raises his hand. His thumb juts upward. Ayu Gul. The crowd explodes in a unified, bloodthirsty roar. The decision is made. The sentence is passed. The referee steps back. The guards ensure you have a clear path. The world narrows once more. It's just you, and Dr. Asus, and the order you've been given. You look down at him. His eyes are wide, not with fear anymore, but with a kind of resigned horror. He knows. He doesn't beg or plead. He accepts his fate with a strange, final dignity that was part of the gladiators' code to die well, without showing fear. He may even crane his neck slightly, offering you a clean target. This is the moment no amount of training could prepare you for. You've been taught to fight, to disarm, to win. But this is different. This is not combat. It is execution. You have to force your arm to move, to plunge your sword into the throat of a man who was, just yesterday, your comrade. You do it. You have to. To refuse an order would mean your own death, likely a far more painful one at the hands of the arena guards. You are a tool, and you must perform your function. You thrust the gladius down. It's a short, sharp, sickeningly easy motion. A fresh wave of cheers, the loudest yet, washes over you. You pull your sword free and step back. Attendants rush forward to drag drive as you assess body away towards the spoliarium. One of them, dressed as the underworld demon Karen, prods the body with a hot iron to ensure he is truly dead. It's all part of the ghoulish theater. You are alone in the center of the arena, your sword dripping. You have survived. You have won. You have killed. You raise your sword to the crowd, an automatic gesture you ward out. They cheer for you, for their new, victorious hero. But inside your helmet, all you can hear is the screaming silence where drive as you assess life used to be. You are led from the arena, your legs unsteady, your mind a numb haze. The roar of the crowd fades behind you as you re-enter the dim, cool corridors beneath the stands. An attendant roughly takes your helmet off, and the sudden return of unfiltered light and sound is jarring. Another hands you a cloth to wipe the blood from your sword. It's a practiced, efficient process, like a slaughterhouse cleaning station. The body of Dr. Asus is lying on a stone slab in the spoliarium, already stripped of his armor. The Galer Ussen trident lay nearby, ready to be returned to the Lawnest Day's inventory. No one gives the body a second glance. It is no longer an asset, just a piece of meat to be disposed of. You are taken to a small room where the other victors from your ludus are gathered. The M.U. Armillo from the first fight is there, his arm being bandaged by a medic. He nods at you, a grim acknowledgement. You are now part of a new, more exclusive Club the Survivors. Your Lawnest Day bustles in, his face flushed with excitement and wine. HES, not fawning now HES, the proud owner of winning stock. He claps you on the shoulder, a gesture that feels both congratulatory and proprietary. Good work, Boreas. Good work, Dorius. Good work. You showed them. That finish. Perfect. The editor was very pleased. He doesn't mention Dr. Aces by name. Dr. Aces is already a forgotten expense, a line item crossed off the ledger. He presses a small, heavy leather pouch into your hand. You open it. Inside are a few silver and bronze coins. This is your prize, your reward for victory. The premium. It feels ridiculously, indulgently small. You know that the Lawneste received a substantial fee for your appearance, and now a bonus for your victory. The senator who sponsored the games has gained immense popularity. The crowd got their thrilling spectacle. And you, the man who did the fighting and the killing, get a handful of change. The reality of a gladiator's earnings is a stark contrast to the myth of untold riches. Yes, a top-tier, superstar champion, a free man who could negotiate his own contracts might earn a fortune. There are records of famous gladiators who retired as wealthy men. But for the vast majority, especially for slaves like you, the financial reality was grim. Most of the prize money went directly to the Lawneste. It was his return on investment. He had to cover the costs of your training, your food as it was, your medical care, and your transport. What was left over for you was a pittance. It was enough to gamble with, to buy small comforts from the guards or vendors who serviced the Ludes, a piece of fruit, a skin of better wine, the companionship of a camp follower. But it was rarely enough to buy your freedom. This brings up a little-known aspect of the gladiator economy debt. Many gladiators, especially the volunteer octoradii, were in a state of perpetual debt to their Lawneste. The initial signing bonus they received was often treated as a loan. The cost of their gear, their specialized food, even their medical treatment, could be added to their tab. Their meager prize money would then go towards paying off this debt. It was a system of indentured servitude, expertly designed to keep the fighters bound to the school, chasing a freedom that was always just out of financial reach. The question of what gladiators even spent their money on is a source of historical curiosity. Since they lived in a completely controlled environment, their opportunities were limited. As mentioned, small luxuries were a primary outlet. But there was also the matter of death. Many gladiators joined burial societies or clubs collegiae. They would contribute a small portion of their earnings to a common fund, which would be used to ensure that any member who fell in the arena received a proper burial and a tombstone with a respectful inscription. In a life stripped of dignity, the promise of a dignified exit was one of the few things worth buying. You hold the coins in your hand. They feel heavy with the weight of what you did to earn them. This is the price of a man's life. Your Lawneste is still babbling, talking about your next fight, about the potential for higher fees. He sees a bright, profitable future for you. HCS already reinvesting his earnings in his mind. You look past him, back towards the Aspoliarium. You think of Dr. Aces. He had earnings too. He had a small stash of coins hidden in his straw pallet back at the Ludes. What happens to it now, most likely, it will be confiscated by the Lawneste as part of the deceased's estate. Or perhaps, if Dr. Aces was part of a collegium, one of his friends will discreetly collect it and add it to the burial fund. The victor feels hollow. The prize money feels like an insult. You survived, yes, but you are still a slave. You are still trapped. You've just proven that you are a profitable piece of property, which, you realize with a sinking heart, doesn't make you more free. It just makes you more valuable to your owner and ensures you will be put in harm's way again and again until your luck finally runs out. The coins in your hand are not a reward, they are just another link in the chain. You return to the Ludes under a shroud of grim twilight. The journey back is even quieter than the one to the city. The chains feel heavier. The surviving victors are lost in their own private worlds of shock and exhaustion. The dead are absent, their empty spaces in the cart a silent testament to the day's brutal calculus. Back in the familiar squalor of the barracks, The atmosphere is thick with a strange tension. The men who didn't fight, who stayed behind, look at you differently. There's a new respect in their eyes, but it's mingled with something else, fear. You are no longer just one of them. You are a killer. You have crossed a line that they have yet to approach. You have proven you can do it. No one mentions Dr. Asus. His cell is empty, his straw pallet already cleared out. It's as if he never existed. The machine of the ludus has no room for ghosts. But he exists in your mind. He is a constant, unwelcome guest. That night, sleep offers no escape. You close your eyes, and you are back on the hot sand. You see the net flying. You feel the jolt of your shield hitting his body. You see his eyes as he raises a finger in surrender. And then you see your own arm, moving as if controlled by someone else, plunging the sword down. You see the surprise and acceptance in his face, the final exhalation of breath. You wake up with a gasp, your heart pounding, the phantom sensation of the sword hilt still in your hand. You are not alone in this. In the quiet darkness of the barracks, you hear other men crying out in their sleep, muttering names, thrashing against their own nightmares. The psychological toll of this life is a wound that the medicus cannot stitch, the scar that no one can see. To kill for survival in the heat of battle is one thing. To be forced, systematically to kill for the entertainment of a crowd is another. The men you fight are not faceless enemies from a distant land. They are your peers, men living the same miserable existence. You train with them, eat with them, share the same fears. Then you are ordered to kill them. This cycle of forced intimacy followed by ritualized slaughter must have created a profound and damaging psychological dissonance. How did gladiators cope? Did they suffer from what a modern psychologist would diagnose as post-traumatic stress disorder? It's almost stress disorder, it's almost certain they did. The nightmares, the flashbacks, the emotional numbness you're experiencing, these are all classic symptoms. The Romans didn't have a name for PTSD, but they certainly understood its effects, often referring to it in soldiers as battle shock or a kind of melancholic madness. Their coping mechanisms were limited and often destructive. The small earnings you received could buy temporary oblivion in the form of cheap wine. Gambling was another distraction, a way to focus the mind on the turn of a card rather than the turn of a sword. Bragging in bravado, the loud assertions of one's own prowess, that you see from the veterans, was another form of psychological armor. By building a persona of a fearless, invincible warrior, perhaps they could convince not only others, but also themselves. There's a curious and sad piece of archaeological evidence related to this, the discovery of what appear to be good luck charms or amulets among the remains of gladiators. These could be small, carved phallic symbols for luck, representations of the goddess of fate, Nemesis, or even personal trinkets they managed to keep hidden. In a world where your life is completely out of your control, clinging to a superstitious ritual, a small object that you believe gives you some measure of power over your destiny, is a desperate but deeply human act. It's a way to impose a sense of order on a universe of pure chaos. The question of whether gladiators became desensitized to the killing is complex, and one that historians debate. Some likely did. The human mind has a powerful capacity to adapt, to normalize even the most horrific circumstances. For a veteran who had killed 10 or 20 men, the act might have become a grim, mechanical routine. But for others, each death may have been a fresh drama, another ghost to add to the collection that haunted their sleep. There was likely no single gladiator mindset, but a spectrum of responses ranging from psychopathic indifference to crippling guilt. You lie on your pallet, listening to the sounds of the sleeping barracks. You think about the path ahead. The Launiste is already planning your next fight. You are a successful commodity. You will be used until you are broken or killed. The nightmares are not just a memory of the past, they are a preview of the future. The horror is not that you had to kill Asus. The horror is that you know with a bone-deep certainty that he will not be the last. You are trapped in a cage of someone else's making. But the most terrifying prison is the one they are building inside your own head. In the weeks following your first kill, a strange thing starts to happen. Your status within the ludus begins to change. The other novices now look at you with a mixture of awe and caution. The veterans, who once ignored you, now give you a curt nod of acknowledgement. You've passed the initiation. You've proven you have what it takes. You are no longer just fresh meat, but the change is even more palpable outside the walls of the school. The games in the provincial capital were a major event, and your victory, especially the decisive, crowd-pleasing finish, has made you a minor celebrity. One day, a trainer tells you to clean up. You're confused until he leads you not to the training yard, but to a small, barred window in the main office that looks out onto the public road. A small group of people are gathered there, hoping to catch a glimpse of the fighters. Among them are a few young boys, their eyes wide with excitement. When they see you, one of them points and shouts your new name, Boreas. It's Boreas. They start mimicking your fighting stance, clumsy imitations with imaginary swords. They are play-acting your kill, turning the most traumatic moment of your life into a children's game. It's a surreal and deeply unsettling experience. This was the bizarre duality of a gladiator's existence. You were a reviled infames, a social outcast, yet you were also a pop culture icon. The most famous gladiators were the superstars of their day, the equivalent of modern football, heroes or movie stars. Their fame was pervasive. Archaeologists have found evidence of this gladiator fandom everywhere. Graffiti praising specific fighters is common on the walls of Pompeii and other Roman cities. Salatus the Thracian makes all the girls sigh. Crescens, the net fighter, holds the hearts of the ladies. Children played with gladiator action figures, small clay or bronze statues of fighters in various poses. Images of gladiators adorned everyday objects, mosaics on the floors of wealthy villas, designs on pottery and oil lamps, and even patterns on glassware. You could be a social pariah, but you could also be the face on someone's drinking cup. You also discover you have female admirers. Sometimes, wealthy, respectable women would send gifts to the ludus for their favorite fighters: a basket of fruit, a skin of expensive wine, or even a perfumed letter. The guards would deliver these tokens, often with a knowing smirk. The fascination of Roman women, particularly those of the upper classes, with gladiators was a well-documented, if scandalous, phenomenon. The poet Juvenal wrote scathingly about a senator's wife, Ebiae, who supposedly ran off to Egypt with her favorite gladiator, a scarred, one-eyed brute. This fascination was likely rooted in the stark contrast these men presented to the refined, and often effete, men of the Roman elite. Gladiators were seen as symbols of pure, primal masculinity, dangerous, powerful, and untamed. They were the ultimate forbidden fruit, a safe way to flirt with a world of violence and passion from a comfortable distance. One of the more peculiar and less discussed aspects of this fandom was the belief that a gladiator's blood held special properties. Some Roman women would dip a hairpin or a piece of cloth in the blood of a slain gladiator, believing it to be a powerful aphrodisiac or a fertility charm. The sweat scraped from a gladiator's body after a fight was also collected and sold in small vials as a kind of high-end, if gruesome, cosmetic, believed to improve the complexion. Your very bodily fluids were being commodified, sold as magic potions to the same people who cheered for your death. The question of whether gladiators ever had genuine relationships with these admirers is complex. For the most part, contact was impossible. You were a prisoner. However, for a star gladiator, an octaratus with more privileges, the Laniste might arrange for a discreet and profitable rendezvous with a wealthy admirer. For a slave like you, these women are just another part of the strange, distant spectacle of your own life. You step back from the window, the shouts of the children still ringing in your ears. The fame feels as hollow as the victory prize, the adulation of the crowd, the hero worship of children, the secret desire of wealthy women, none of it changes your reality. It doesn't lessen the nightmares. It doesn't remove the chains. It doesn't bring Dr. Evases back. In fact, it makes your situation even more perverse. You are simultaneously an object of desire and a disposable commodity. Your life is a public performance, and your death will be the ultimate climax of that performance. The more famous you become, the more people have a vested interest in watching you fight. Your popularity doesn't grant you freedom, it just raises the stakes. You are being idolized by the very society that has condemned you, a hero in the morning, a ghost in the evening. The cheers and the whispers are just another part of the cage. Your victory and newfound minor celebrity status have a direct impact on your life, but not in the way you might hope. You are now a proven asset, a gladiator who can win and who has a name the crowds recognize. This means one thing to your lawn is it's time to cash in. You are no longer just training, you are preparing. The Lawniste starts booking you for more fights in the regional circuit of games. Sometimes you travel to dusty arenas in small backwater towns, other times to the more impressive stone amphitheaters of larger cities. Each time, the routine is the same: the grim journey, the tense wait, the roar of the crowd, and the life or death struggle on the sand. With each fight, the stakes get higher. You are no longer pitted against fellow novices. Your opponents are now more experienced, more scarred, more dangerous. They are men who have survived a dozen or more fights, who know every trick, every dirty move. The Lawniste is matching you carefully, building your reputation, but always for a price. A higher profile match means a larger purse for him. For you, it means a greater chance of not coming back. You win your second fight, and your third. You are good at this. Terrifyingly good. The instincts honed in those first brutal months, the muscle memory drilled into you day after day. It all serves you well. You learn to read your opponents, to see the subtle shift in weight that telegraphs an attack, to exploit a momentary lapse in concentration. You are no longer just surviving, you are fighting with a cold, detached skill. Your name, Boreas the Sacred, or starts to appear more frequently in graffiti. Your victories are tallied up for all to see. You are becoming a reliable draw, a local star. The prize money you receive increases slightly after each win, but it remains a pittance compared to the sums your Lawniste is raking in. Your life is a series of brutal, life-threatening performances, and he is your agent, manager, and donor, collecting the lion's share of the profits. This is the grim career path of a successful gladiator. Fame didn't necessarily lead to an easier life. It led to more pressure and more danger. An unknown novice might fight in a preliminary match where a surrender would likely be accepted. A rising star like you would be placed in a prime spot on the card, where the crowd's expectation for a bloody, decisive finish was much higher. Your very success was weaving a tighter and tighter net around you. You see what happens to those whose luck runs out. One afternoon, you fight a veteran ready Arias, a man with a fearsome reputation. It's the hardest fight of your life. HES, wily and experienced, and he manages to catch you in his net. You're entangled, helpless. He moves in with his trident for the kill. The crowd is screaming for your blood. This, you think, is the end, but in his eagerness, he makes a mistake. He gets too close. With a desperate surge of strength, you manage to grab the shaft of his trident with your free hand. You wrench it from his grasp and, in the same motion, use your entangled sword to slash at his unprotected legs. He goes down, howling in pain. You manage to untangle yourself and stand over him. The crowd, loving the dramatic reversal, screams for his death. You oblige. You've survived, but your reputation as an exciting fighter is now cemented. The Lawniste is ecstatic. HES just found a new marketing angle for you, the comeback king. This means he can charge even more for your appearances. One of the lesser-known aspects of a gladiator's career was the concept of the substitute or supposed ICIS. If a scheduled gladiator fell ill or was injured before a major fight, a replacement had to be found. Aloneste could make a huge amount of money by providing a last-minute substitute, charging a premium for saving the editor's show. For the gladiator chosen as the substitute, this was often a death sentence. You would be thrown into a fight you hadn't specifically trained for, against an opponent you knew nothing about, purely for your owner's profit. The question of whether gladiators had any agency in choosing their fights is one that fascinates historians. For a slave, the answer is zero. But for a high-level octoritas, a free man who was a major star, the situation might have been different. Could a champion like Flamme, who fought over 30 times and was awarded his freedom for times unrefused at each time, have had some say in his matchups? Could he have demanded a higher fee or a specific type of opponent? It's certainly possible. For the absolute top 1% of fighters, the power dynamic might have shifted slightly from pure ownership to a complex negotiation. But for you, a rising star but still a slave, you fight who you're told to fight when you're told to fight. With each victory, the nightmares get worse. Now they are populated not just by Dr. Aces, but by a growing collection of ghostly faces. You see the veteran Ready Arias, his face contorted in a silent scream. You see the burly gull you dispatched in a dusty provincial town. They are a silent chorus in your head, a constant reminder of the bloody path you are walking. Your fame is a cage. Your victories are the bars of that cage. Each one makes you more valuable, more celebrated, and more trapped. You are a star, yes, but a falling star, destined to burn brightly, and then extinguish yourself for the fleeting entertainment of the masses. And as the law estate tells you about your next big fight in a prestigious arena, you don't feel pride or excitement. You just feel a cold, hollow dread. The road of a successful gladiator doesn't lead to freedom. It just leads to a bigger, more spectacular death. Your rising fame and the increasing danger of your fights bring you into the orbit of a new kind of spectacle. Not all gladiatorial combat was a straightforward one-on-one duel. The Roman appetite for novelty was insatiable, and the editors were constantly dreaming up new and bizarre ways to entertain the masses. One day, your honest stay informs you that you've been booked for a very special event as part of a week-long festival. You won't be fighting another gladiator. Instead, you will be part of a venatio, a wild beast hunt. The Venationes were an incredibly popular part of the games, often serving as the morning's entertainment before the main gladiatorial events in the afternoon. The Romans went to enormous lengths to capture and import exotic animals from every corner of their empire: lions from North Africa, bears from Caledonia, tigers from Caledonia, tigers from Parthia, crocodiles from Egypt, and rhinos from Nubia. These animals were then released into the arena to be hunted and killed by specially trained fighters called venatores, or best IRE. You are not a best IRIs. Your skills are for fighting men, not animals. But a star gladiator like you being pitted against a dangerous beast, that's a novelty, a special attraction that the sponsor is willing to pay a premium for. For your l'honnêteté, it's a lucrative business decision. For you, it's a terrifying new challenge. You know how to parry a sword thrust. But how do you parry the charge of a wild boar? You're not alone. A handful of other gladiators have been selected for this event. You are given different weapons for the occasion: long, heavy hunting spears instead of your gladius. The training is minimal. You practice forming a defensive line and setting your spears to receive a charge. It feels flimsy and inadequate. On the day of the hunt, the arena is transformed. Scenery, trees, rocks, and bushes has been brought onto the sand to create the illusion of a forest. The crowd loves this kind of theatricality. Then, from gates at the side of the arena, the animals are released. First, a pack of large, ferocious hounds bred for hunting. Then, two enormous wild boars, their tusks gleaming in the sun. The fight is a chaotic, terrifying mess. It's not a duel, it's a brawl against nature itself. The dogs are a whirlwind of teeth and snapping jaws. The boars are battering rams of muscle and fury. You and the other fighters work together, a desperate, makeshift unit. A man next to you screams as a boar's tusk grips his leg open. You manage to drive your spear into the flank of the other boar, but the beast just roars in anger, thrashing wildly, nearly tearing the spear from your grasp. And completely without the cold precision of gladiatorial combat, it is pure survival. Eventually, through sheer numbers and desperation, you manage to kill the animals. You are splattered with blood. Your arm is throbbing from the impact of the spear, but you are alive. The crowd roars its approval, but the venatio is just the beginning of the day's strange spectacles. Later, you are forced to participate in something even more bizarre, nomachie, or simulated naval battle. These were the rarest and most extravagant of all the Roman games, usually reserved for imperial celebrations. An entire arena, like the Colosseum, or a specially dug basin, would be flooded with water. Full-sized real ships, crewed by prisoners and gladiators, would then engage in a mock, but often deadly battle, reenacting a famous historical victory. Your battle is a much smaller, provincial affair. The arena is only partially flooded, the water barely waist-deep. You are crowded onto a large, flat-bottomed boat with a dozen other men, representing, the herald announces, the fleet of Antony and Cleopatra. Another boat, crewed by another group of fighters, represents the fleet of Octavian. Your job is to board their ship and capture it. The whole thing feels absurd. You're sloshing around in murky water, trying to swing a blunted sword while maintaining your footing on a rocking boat. Men are falling into the water, armor and all. The crowd is laughing and cheering at the sheer ridiculousness of it all. It's less a battle and more a chaotic, violent slapstick routine. These novelty acts highlight the core purpose of the game's entertainment at any cost. The Romans were not just bloodthirsty, they were novelty-thirsty. They craved the new, the spectacular, the never-before-seen. This led to some truly strange and often cruel performances. There were the bygone, who were essentially clown gladiators, fighting with whips and clubs in comical, non-lethal matches. There were also historical reenactments where condemned criminals were forced to play the role of a mythological character who dies a gruesome death. A man might be dressed as Hercules and burned alive on a pyre, or dressed as Icarus and thrown from a great height. One of the most debated forms of spectacle involves the execution of Christians, often described as damnatio at best, i.e. as condemnation to the beasts. While historical sources confirm this happened, particularly during periods of intense persecution, its frequency and nature are a matter of scholarly discussion. Was it a common, scheduled part of the games everywhere, or a rare event tied to specific political moments? The line between historical reality and later martyrology can be difficult to draw. For you, in this moment, it's just another reminder that the arena can be used for any purpose the powerful deem fit. You survive the day of strange shows. You are wet, bruised, and utterly exhausted. You fought animals and waded through a fake sea battle. You have been a hunter, a soldier, and an actor, all for the crowd's amusement. It strips away the last vestiges of the honorable combatant illusion. You are not a warrior. You are an entertainer, a performer in a grand, bloody circus, and your only job is to put on a good show, no matter how ridiculous or deadly the script may be. Years begin to bleed into one another, measured not in seasons, but in scars. You have survived. It's a miracle, a statistical anomaly. You've fought in dozens of matches, in arenas big and small. You've killed more men than you can bear to remember. Their faces are a permanent, silent crowd in the back of your mind. You are a veteran now, a primus palace, a first pole gladiator. Your name is known throughout the province. You have your own cell in the barracks, a small privilege that affords you a sliver of privacy. The food you're given is better, you even get meat occasionally. The trainers, who once beat you mercilessly, now treat you with a kind of grudging professional respect. You are a star, a major earner for the law honest, but the price of this survival is etched into your body. your skin is a roadmap of your career. The scar on your scalp from that first training injury is now joined by a dozen others, a silvery line on your forearm, where a THRAX's curved blade slipped past your shield, a puckered mark on your thigh from a boar's tusk, a poorly healed finger that was broken in a brawl. You move with a certain stiffness in the mornings, your old injuries whispering of past battles. You've seen so many men come and go. Eager young novices, full of fire and fear, who last only 1 or 2 fights. Arrogant veterans who get careless and pay the ultimate price. You've even outlasted C or Ixus. He didn't die in the arena. His end was slower, more pathetic. A deep wound in his side from a spear thrust never healed properly. It festered, and the medicus, for all his skill, couldn't stop the infection. He wasted away in the infirmary, consumed by fever, his legendary strength gone. His death was not glorious. It was a quiet, squalid end in a back room, a financial write-off for the Lawniste. Your survival has brought you face to face with the ultimate dream of every gladiator, the Rudies. The Rudies is a simple wooden sword, identical to the one you used in your first agonizing training sessions. But this one is not for training. It is a symbol. It is the gift of freedom. A gladiator could be granted his freedom for exceptional service. There was no set rule for how this was achieved. It was not a matter of winning a certain number of fights or serving a specific number of years. It was entirely at the discretion of the editor of the games, often at the roaring demand of the crowd, as a reward for a particularly spectacular performance. The free gladiator, the Rudi Arias, would be presented with this wooden sword in a ceremony in the arena, a symbol that his obligation to fight and die was over. He was, in theory, a free man. You've seen it happen once. A legendary MUR Milo, after a career spanning almost a decade, won a stunning victory against 2 opponents at once. The crowd went into a frenzy, chanting for his freedom. The editor, basking in the reflected glory and public goodwill, granted it. The man was presented with the Rudies, and he walked out of the arena, no longer a slave. The hope of that moment, the dream of the Rudies, is the psychological fuel that keeps many men going. It's the ultimate prize, more valuable than any purse. It's the light at the end of the bloody tunnel. But you, a seasoned veteran, have also seen the truth that lies beyond that dream. Freedom was not always what it seemed. A Rudi Arias was free, but what did that mean? He was still in Falmies, legally disgraced. His skills killing men in an arena were not easily transferable to civilian life. He was a man trained for a single purpose, suddenly without that purpose. Some freed gladiators managed to build a new life. They might use their fame and earnings to open a tavern or a small business. A rare few, like the legendary Flamme, were so popular and so addicted to the life that they refused their freedom and continued to fight. But for many, the path was less glamorous. The most common career for a Rudi Arias was to return to the only world he knew, the Ludus. Many became trainers, the grim-faced men with whips who now coached the next generation of fighters. They traded their spot on the sand for a place on the sidelines, forever bound to the world that had enslaved them. There's a little-known category of freedman gladiator known as an armentarius, who specialized in managing the animals for the Venetian S. It was a way to stay connected to the games, using their knowledge of combatant animal behavior, but without the direct risk of fighting humans. It was a step up from the arena, but still a life lived in its shadow. The question of how society truly viewed these freedmen is a matter of debate. Did a Rudi Arias who became a successful trainer gain a measure of respectability? Could he ever truly wash away the stain of the arena? Some evidence, like laudatory tombstones commissioned by their students, suggests they could achieve a certain revered status within their violent subculture. But in the eyes of the broader Roman elite, they were likely always that former gladiator, a man marked forever by his bloody past. You lie in your cell, the phantom weight of old injuries a familiar companion. You think of the Rudies. The dream of it is a powerful motivator. But the reality of it is a terrifying unknown. What would you do? Where would you go? Your family is gone. Your village a distant memory. The only life you know is here, within these walls. The freedom you crave might just be another kind of prison, a lonely exile from the only community, however brutal, you have left. The wooden sword, you realize, is not just a symbol of freedom. It's a symbol of a future you cannot even begin to imagine. You are old now. Not old by the standards of the outside world. You might only be in your early 30s, but in the compressed, violent timeline of the arena, you are ancient. A living fossil. The strength that once came so easily now has to be summoned with a conscious effort. The speed that saved your life a dozen times has been tempered by caution and the dull ache in your joints. Your Tay, who was a fleshy, middle-aged man when he bought you, is now gray and stooped, though his eyes are just as cold and calculating as ever. He treats you with a strange mixture of reverence and impatience. You are his greatest asset, his most famous star, the gladiator whose name still guarantees a sold-out crowd. But you are also an aging asset, a property in decline. You see the future of the Ludus in the new crop of recruits. They are young, strong, and full of the same terrified bravado you once had. They look at you with a kind of mythic awe, whispering your name as you pass. To them, you are a legend, the gladiator who couldn't be killed. They don't see the toll it has taken. They don't see the ghosts in your eyes or the tremor that sometimes runs through your hand. Your role in the Ludus has subtly shifted. You still train, but not with the same desperate intensity. The head trainer, who is younger than you and once your contemporary in the arena, now asks for your opinion. He has you demonstrate techniques to the novices, showing them the small, brutal efficiencies that have kept you alive. You are, without any official title, becoming one of them, a teacher. You watch these young men go through the same process you did. You see them get their stage names, their specialized weapons. You watch them fight and kill for the first time. You see the light in their eyes dim and harden. You are watching your own past play out in front of you, a grim, repeating cycle. You see the new octoradii, the free men who sign up willingly. One of them, a young Roman citizen named Marcus, is here to clear a massive family debt. HES confident, almost arrogant, convinced that his status as a citizen and his volunteer contract make him different from the slaves. You see the naivety in his eyes and you want to warn him, to tell him that once he steps on the sand, he is the same as everyone else. But you say nothing. It's a lesson he has to learn for himself, if he lives long enough. This is the most common fate for a gladiator who survives to old age. He doesn't get a heroic death in the arena or a triumphant retirement. He simply becomes obsolete. His reflexes slow, his strength wanes, and he becomes too much of a risk for the longest day to put in a high-stakes match. He might be relegated to fighting in low-tier preliminary bouts, or in the farcical Pygean IRE matches with blunt weapons. His fall from stardom is a slow, humiliating decline. The most fortunate of these aging veterans might graduate to being a trainer, a doctor. They could live out their days in the relative safety of the Ludus, instilling their hard-won knowledge in a new generation. It was a life of respect within the gladiatorial community, but still a life confined within the prison walls. What about those who were too broken to train, but not yet dead? Their fate was grim. Some might be relegated to menial jobs within the Ludus, cleaning the armory, tending the fires in the kitchen, mucking out the latrines. They were a constant, visible reminder to the younger fighters of what the future held, a slow fade into irrelevance. A particularly grim and little discussed possibility for a completely used-up gladiator was to be sold. Not to another Ludus, but to the mines or the quarries. This was a death sentence, but a slow and agonizing one. The life expectancy of a worker in a Roman mine was incredibly short. It was the absolute bottom of the Roman social and economic ladder, A final, miserable end for a man whose body had nothing left to give. The question of pensions or retirement funds for gladiators is one that historians have explored. There is no evidence of any formal system. Arius left with what he had managed to save, which for most was very little. The collegae, the burial societies, were the closest thing to a social safety net, but they only provided for a funeral, not for old age. Your survival was your own responsibility. You stand in the training yard, watching the young men clash with their wooden swords. You see their clumsy mistakes, their wasted movements. You could step in and correct them, show them the subtle turn of the wrist that makes a parry stronger, the shift of weight that adds power to a thrust. You have a universe of deadly knowledge in your head. You are becoming a ghost in your own life, haunting the place where you were forged. You are a living relic, a testament to a bygone era of the arena. The Launiste knows your fighting days are numbered. Soon, he will have to decide what to do with his aging, expensive star. Will he grant you the rudies in a final, profitable blaze of glory? Will he offer you a position as a trainer, or will he simply cut his losses and find a less glamorous way to dispose of his used-up property? The end is coming, not as a sudden, violent climax in the arena, but as a slow, quiet fading. And in many ways, that feels more terrifying than any opponent you have ever faced. The Launiste finally makes his move, but it's not what you a trainer's whip or a one-way trip to the quarries. He offers you one last, great fight. A farewell match. He's framing it as an honorable send-off for his greatest champion. You know better. It's his final, most lucrative opportunity to profit from your name. He has arranged a mana-sighing mission EA game without release. This is a rare and brutal type of contest where surrender is not an option. The fight can only end when one of the combatants is dead. No appeals to the crowd, no gestures from the editor. A fight to the absolute finish. These were expensive and uncommon, reserved for the most significant occasions, and they guaranteed a bloody spectacle. Your opponent is to be a rising star from a rival ludus in Rome itself. A young, undefeated Milo who is making a name for himself. The symbolism is crude but effective. The old legend versus the new blood, the past versus the future. The outcome in the eyes of the bookmakers and your Launiste is a foregone conclusion. You are being served up as a sacrificial stepping stone to cement the new champion's fame. Your role is to put up a good fight, make it look credible, and die gloriously. The prize, the Launiste tells you with a magnanimous smile, is that should you achieve the impossible and win, you will be granted the rudies on the spot. It's a hollow promise, a theatrical flourish to add to the drama. He doesn't believe for a second that you can win. The weeks before the fight are a surreal parody of your long career. You are treated like a visiting god. The food is the best you've ever had. You are excused from all menial tasks. The medicus checks on you daily, ensuring you are in peak physical condition for your final performance. It is the most care and attention you have ever received, all in preparation for your state-sanctioned murder. You spend your days training, but it feels different. You are not learning new moves. You are revisiting old ones, trying to coax one last burst of speed from your tired muscles, one last flicker of the fire that has kept you alive for so long. The young gladiators watch you with reverence, as if you are already a ghost. The night before the fight, you were given a private scenally bara. Not with the other fighters, but alone in your cell. A feast of roasted meat, bread with honey, and a full amphora of good wine. It is a final solitary meal. As you eat, you think back on your life. The green fields of your homeland, the face of your mother, the terror of your capture. It all seems like a story that happened to someone else. Your real life, the only life you can truly remember, has been lived within the confines of the ludus and the arena. This complete and utter ownership of a gladiator's life and death by his Launiste or sponsoring editor represents the absolute nadir of human commodification in the Roman world. You are a playing piece in a game of commerce and entertainment. Your very existence is a contract, and that contract is now due to be paid in full. There's a strange and little-known legal concept here. While a master could not, by the later stages of the empire, kill his slave without due cause, the sacramentum gladiatium, that oath you took, was a loophole. By agreeing to be killed, you essentially gave your owner ego right to orchestrate your death, as long as it was within the context of the games. The arena was a space outside normal law, a place where the rules of civilization were temporarily suspended. The question of whether gladiators in a assigned mission match ever refused to fight is one that scholars ponder. What if both men simply threw down their weapons? The result would likely be their immediate execution by the arena guards. The crowd and the editor paid for a death, and a death would be delivered one way or another. The choice to fight was an illusion. The only real choice was how you would die: on your feet, fighting, or on your knees, begging. You finish your meal. You don't drink all the wine. You want your head to be clear. You lie on your pallet for the last time in years. The ghosts are quiet. The nightmares have receded. There is a strange, calm clarity that comes with knowing the end is certain. There is no more hope, and therefore, no more fear. There is only the fight ahead. You think about the young Murmillo you are to face. He is you, 10 years ago, full of strength, ambition, and the belief that he is invincible. He does not yet know the cost of this life. He does not yet have a chorus of ghosts in his head. You feel a strange, paternal pity for him. Tomorrow, you will either die at his hand, or you will curse him by making him into a killer, setting him on the same long, bloody road you have walked. In a way, his fate is more tragic than yours. His is just beginning. The day of your final fight dawns bright and clear. The sounds from the city are louder than usual, a festival buzz that feels a world away from the quiet finality in your soul. You go through the motions like a sleepwalker. You are washed, oiled, and dressed in your armor. It feels heavier than ever before. As you walk the tunnel towards the arena, you pass the young Murmillo. He stands with his aurainers, his eyes burning with intensity. He looks at you, not with arrogance, but with the focused respect a warrior gives to a formidable foe. He is ready. You simply nod. There is nothing left to say. You step onto the sand. The amphitheater is packed, the noise immense. But it all seems distant now, a dreamlike roar at the edge of your perception. You see the senator who bought you for your first fight, older now, sitting in the place of honor. You see your Laniste, his face a mask of feigned solemnity. They are all here for the end of your story. The herald announces the term sign missione. They fight to the death. The crowd's roar deepens, taking on a darker, more primal tone. This is what they came for. You put on your sekut, or helmet. The world narrows to that familiar, claustrophobic view. The muffled sound of your own breathing is a steady, calming rhythm. This helmet, which you once hated, has become a sanctuary. In here, you are not a slave, not a celebrity, not a sacrifice. You are just a fighter. The trumpet sounds. The young Murmillo is fast and strong, just as you knew he would be. He comes at you with a flurry of blows, a storm of youthful energy. He is textbook perfect, his form flawless. You give ground, absorbing his initial assault on your shield. You are not fighting his fight. You are not trying to match his speed or his strength. You are fighting with the one weapon you have that he does not ton. You let him expend his energy. You parry, you block, you retreat. You let him believe he is winning. Your body is a testament to 1,000 such battles. You know how to weather a storm. You feel the dull impact of his sword against your shield, the strain in your arm, the familiar ache in your shoulder. It's an old, familiar pain, a kind of homecoming. The crowd grows restless. They want action. They want the kill. They start to jeer, to whistle. They think you are afraid that you are just delaying the inevitable, but you are waiting. As the fight wears on, you see the subtle changes in your opponent. His movements become slightly less precise. His breathing grows heavier. His perfect form begins to fray at the edges. He is a young lion, powerful but without the stamina, the deep well of endurance that comes from a decade of suffering. You see your opening. It's not a dramatic one. It's a tiny, fractional moment of overextension as he lunges. You don't counterattack. Instead, you use his own momentum against him. You step to the side, letting his blow glance off your shield, and you hook your leg behind his. It's the same move you used against Drivasis a lifetime ago. He crashes to the sand. The crowd gasps, then explodes. The impossible has happened. The old lion has brought down the young challenger. You stand over him. He looks up at you, his eyes wide with disbelief in the sudden, raw error of a man who has never faced his own mortality before. There is no surrender. There is no appeal. He knows the terms. You look up past him, towards the box where your Launus sits. You can't see his face clearly, but you can imagine his shock, his fury. His perfect script has been ruined. His prize bull has been slaughtered. You look down at the young man on the sand. You see your own reflection in his terrified eyes. You see the long dark road that you could now force him to walk if you let him live, scarred by this defeat. And you see the ghosts, your ghosts, waiting silently for you to join them. You have spent your entire adult life as a tool, an instrument of other men's wills. Your body, your time, your life, your death, none of it has been your own. But in this one, final moment, you have a choice. The gladiator tombstone of a man named bygone, found in Milan, contains a chilling piece of advice to his opponent. I warn you to kill the one who is attacking you. This suggests a grim kill, or be killed ethos was not just understood, but was a core part of the identity. Was mercy ever an option in a fight sign mission E? Absolutely not. But what form Ian takes, that can be a choice. You could kill him, as everyone expects. It would be the final, triumphant act of your career. Or you could do something else. You raise your sword high. The crowd roars, anticipating the final blow. But you don't bring it down on the Mur. You turn the point of the sword inward, towards your own body. You find a gap in your armor, a space under your arm where the leather straps meet. With a final, weary sigh, you drive the blade home. It is not an act of despair. It is an act of pure, absolute control. The only one you have ever truly had. You are ending your own story on your own terms. The pain is sharp, immense, but brief. The strength leaves your legs, and you fall to your knees, then onto the sand. The roar of the crowd becomes a distant, buzzing sound. The light in your helmet's eye holes fades to black. Your last thought is not of the crowd, or the Launus or the ghosts. It is of the silence, the wonderful, profound, and final silence. You have finally found your release. The world of the arena, with its deafening roars and flashing steel, begins to dissolve. The sharp edges of fear and pain soften, blurring into a gentle, quiet haze. The weight of the helmet, the shield, the years of survival, it all just floats away, light as dust in a sunbeam. You feel the course and beneath you, but it's no longer a stage for death. It's just warm mirth, a cradle. The shouts of the crowd are a distant echo now, like the memory of a storm that has long since passed, leaving behind only a profound and peaceful calm. You are drifting now on a slow, silent river. The faces of the men you fought, the ghosts that haunted your sleep, are no longer there. There is no judgment, no memory of blood or fear. There is only this gentle, forward-flowing current pulling you away from the noise and into a vast, welcoming stillness. The aches in your body, the roadmap of scars that told your story, they too are fading, smoothed away by the tranquil water. You are no longer Boreas the Sacut or the gladiator, the killer. You are just a consciousness, a presence unburdened and unbound, easing into a slumber deeper and more peaceful than any you have ever known. The long, brutal day is over. You can finally rest.